In the soft whispers of ancient Egypt, where the golden sands met the eternal flow of the Nile, a story was born that would echo through the ages. A tale of gods and mortals, of love and jealousy, of betrayal, death, and the promise of rebirth. This is the story of Osiris, Isis, and Set, a divine drama that shaped the beliefs of a civilization and offered answers to the mysteries of life and death. Long before the pyramids touched the sky and the pharaohs claimed their divine right to rule, there existed a time when gods walked among men. When the world was young and the balance of order and chaos was fragile, at the heart of this divine order stood Osiris, the benevolent god of life, fertility, and the afterlife. He was more than a ruler. He was a symbol of harmony, a bridge between the heavens and the earth. Osiris was born of Geb, the god of the earth, and Nut, the goddess of the sky. Alongside him came his siblings, Isis, his devoted sister and wife, Set, the embodiment of chaos and disorder, and Nephthys, the quiet and mysterious sister who lingered in the shadows of the divine family. Together, they formed the core of the ancient pantheon, each destined to play their part in the unfolding drama of existence. Osiris, with his emerald skin that shimmered like life itself, was loved by gods and mortals alike. Under his gentle rule, Egypt flourished. He taught humanity the secrets of agriculture, the rhythms of the Nile's flooding, the sacred rites that honored the gods. Where once there had been savagery and ignorance, Osiris brought knowledge and peace. The people revered him not just as a king, but as a father who nurtured their souls and their land. By his side stood Isis, the goddess of magic, healing, and devotion. She was known for her wisdom and her unwavering love for Osiris. Together, they were the perfect balance, a union of strength and compassion. Their reign was a golden age, where harmony reigned supreme, and the blessings of the gods flowed freely across the two lands. But in every story of light, there lingers a shadow, and that shadow was Set. Born of the same divine parents, yet so different in nature. Set was fierce, unpredictable, and consumed by envy. Where Osiris brought order, Set thrived in chaos. He ruled over the desert storms, the barren lands, and the forces that threatened to unravel the fabric of existence. Watching his brother bask in adoration, Set's heart grew heavy with resentment. The seed of betrayal was planted long before it ever bore fruit. As Osiris traveled across Egypt, spreading civilization and justice, Set brooded in silence, plotting, waiting for the perfect moment to seize what he believed was rightfully his. The whispers of jealousy turned into silent vows, and the god of chaos began weaving a plan that would forever change the destiny of gods and men. Yet Osiris, in his boundless trust and goodness, saw no danger in his brother's gaze. He welcomed Set into his court, offered him respect and honor, unaware that behind Set's cordial smile lay a storm waiting to be unleashed. The court of the gods remained oblivious, wrapped in the illusion of eternal peace. The days passed like a serene river, but beneath the surface, dark currents stirred. Set's mind was a labyrinth of schemes, each more sinister than the last. He knew that to overthrow Osiris, he could not strike openly. No, such an act required deception. A trap so perfect that even the wise and noble Osiris would not see it coming. And so Set began crafting his masterpiece of betrayal, a plan that would lure Osiris into the arms of death itself. It would begin with a gift, a gesture so generous, so seemingly harmless, that none would suspect the true intention behind it. Set commissioned a magnificent chest, crafted to perfection, adorned with gold and precious stones. It was not merely a chest, but a work of divine artistry, beautiful enough to captivate even the gods. But this chest held a secret. It was made to fit the body of Osiris exactly, for it was not a gift of honor, but a coffin designed for a living god. Set's laughter echoed in the dark corners of his mind as he envisioned the moment when his brother would unknowingly step into his own tomb. Unaware of the impending doom, Osiris continued his noble work, spreading wisdom, ensuring that Egypt remained a beacon of order amidst the encroaching sands of chaos. His people sang his praises. The temples overflowed with offerings, and Isis watched her husband with a heart full of pride and love, never imagining that fate was about to turn its cruel hand against them. Set prepared a grand feast, inviting gods and nobles alike, a celebration in honor of unity and prosperity. But beneath the surface of this joyous occasion, a sinister game was about to be played, one that would set in motion a chain of events leading to betrayal, death, and the hope of resurrection. The night of the grand feast arrived. The halls gleamed with the flicker of oil lamps, casting golden reflections on polished stone and gilded ornaments. Laughter filled the air as gods and mortals gathered, unaware that beneath the surface of this celebration, destiny's cruel hand was quietly at work. Set moved through the crowd with practiced ease, his smile concealing the storm within. His eyes, sharp and calculating, never strayed far from Osiris. The brother he planned to betray before the moon completed its journey across the sky. At the center of the hall stood the chest, a masterpiece so exquisite that gasps of admiration echoed through the room. The guests marveled at its craftsmanship, the way it shimmered like a treasure from beyond the mortal realm. Set, with feigned humility, announced that this chest would be a gift, but only to the one who could fit perfectly within it. A playful contest, he said, a game to entertain the honored guests. Curiosity and amusement spread among those present. One by one, gods and nobles approached the chest, laughing as they lay down inside, only to find themselves too short, too tall, too broad. Each attempt brought more merriment, masking the dark intent behind Set's clever ruse. All the while, Osiris watched with a gentle smile, unaware that this harmless game was designed for him alone. Finally, Set turned to his brother, his voice smooth as silk, and invited Osiris to try. The God King, ever gracious and unsuspecting, agreed. He stepped forward amidst cheers and encouragement, his emerald skin glowing softly under the lantern light. With serene confidence, he lay down within the chest. And as Set had planned, it was a perfect fit. In that instant, the mood shifted. Before Osiris could rise, Set's conspirators sprang into action. A heavy lid was slammed shut. Bolts and nails sealed the chest with unnatural speed. Gasps turned to cries of horror as realization dawned upon the guests. But it was too late. the god of life, was trapped within his gilded coffin, his voice muffled, his strength useless against the divine craftsmanship that now held him prisoner. Set's laughter rang out, no longer masked by pretense. He declared before all that Osiris was dead, that he, Set, would now rule in his place. Chaos had triumphed over order, and the first act of the great tragedy was complete. With ruthless efficiency, Set ordered the chest to be cast into the Nile. The dark waters embraced it, carrying the imprisoned Osiris away from the land he had nurtured. The currents bore him northward, away from Egypt, away from Isis, and into the unknown. The Nile, which had once been a source of life under Osiris's guidance, now became his funeral procession. The guests fled in fear or stood frozen in shock, and amidst the turmoil, Isis's heart shattered. Her beloved husband, her divine partner, was gone. But Isis was not a goddess to surrender to despair. Her love was deeper than the rivers and stronger than death itself. As the halls of celebration turned into a place of mourning, Isis vowed that she would find Osiris, no matter where the waters had taken him, no matter what dangers lay ahead. Draped in mourning, Isis set out alone, abandoning the safety of the court, leaving behind the whispers of fear that now filled Egypt under Set's grim rule. She donned the garments of a wanderer, disguising her divine radiance beneath humble veils. Her journey would take her beyond the borders of her homeland, through deserts and foreign lands, guided only by hope and the faint whispers of the wind that carried news of a mysterious chest drifting upon the waves. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Yet Isis's resolve never wavered. She searched every village along the Nile's path, questioning fishermen and travelers, seeking any sign of the sacred chest that held the body of Osiris. Her tears fell upon the earth, and wherever they touched, flowers were said to bloom, a testament to the depth of her sorrow and the purity of her love. Far to the north, across the sea, the chest had come to rest upon the shores of Byblos, a distant land where the cedar trees reached toward the heavens. There, the currents had carried it into the roots of a great tree. The tree, sensing the divine presence within the chest, grew rapidly, encasing the coffin within its mighty trunk. The people of Byblos, awed by the tree's sudden growth and beauty, felled it and fashioned it into a pillar for the palace of their king, unaware that within this pillar lay the body of a god. Isis, following the faint trails of rumor and magic, arrived in Byblos. Her wisdom and divine grace, though hidden beneath mortal guise, soon earned her favor at the court of the foreign king. She became a nursemaid to the royal children, waiting patiently, sensing that her beloved was near. Each night, she would whisper spells, calling to Osiris's spirit, her heart aching with the nearness of reunion, yet bound by the need for secrecy. At last, when the time was right, Isis revealed her true nature to the king and queen of Byblos. Her divine light shone forth, and with reverence they granted her the pillar, allowing her to reclaim the sacred chest hidden within. With tears of joy and sorrow intertwined, Isis embraced the coffin. The cold wood between her and the lifeless form of Osiris. But even in death, she would not abandon him. With the chest in her possession, Isis began the long journey back to Egypt. determined to use her magic to restore Osiris to life. Unaware that Set's watchful eyes still followed her every move, and that the god of chaos was not yet finished with his brother, nor with the goddess whose love defied even the grave. The journey back to Egypt was quiet, not in the absence of sound, but in the weight of purpose that filled every step Isis took. The sacred chest, cradling the body of Osiris, rested beside her as she traveled under the veil of night. Her heart carried both hope and dread. Hope that her magic would awaken the one she loved, and dread that Set, ever watchful, might strike again before her task was complete. Upon reaching the hidden marshlands of the Nile Delta, Isis found refuge among the reeds. Here, where the waters whispered secrets and the papyrus grew tall, she began her sacred work. With careful hands and ancient incantations, she opened the chest and gazed upon the still form of Osiris. His emerald skin had dimmed, yet his presence was as powerful as ever, a silent reminder of the life he once brought to the world. Drawing upon her deep well of magic, Isis called upon the forces of life and death. Her voice wove through the air like a gentle breeze, carrying spells older than time itself. Nephthys, her sister and quiet ally, joined her. For though Nephthys was the wife of Set, her heart did not align with the god of chaos. She too mourned Osiris and stood by Isis in this sacred act of defiance against death. Together, the sisters invoked the gods, their chants rising with the mist of the marshes, and for a brief, miraculous moment, Osiris stirred. Life returned to his form, but only as a shadow of what it once was, for the dead could not walk freely among the living, not even a god. Yet in that fleeting window between worlds, Isis and Osiris were reunited, their love transcending the barriers of mortality. It was in this moment that Isis conceived a child, a son destined to avenge his father and restore balance to Egypt. This child, though unborn, carried within him the legacy of Osiris and the hope of a world freed from Set's tyranny. His name would be Horus, the falcon-headed god who would one day challenge the forces of chaos. But time was not their ally. The magic that sustained Osiris in the realm of the living began to fade. His fate was no longer tied to the earth but to the Duat, the mysterious underworld where souls journeyed after death. Isis, with a heart heavy yet resolute, prepared her husband for his eternal role. Osiris would become the lord of the afterlife, ruler of the dead, a guide for all who passed beyond the veil. Before his spirit fully departed, Osiris entrusted Isis with his final blessing, and with that, he descended into the Duat, taking his place upon a throne not of gold and jewels, but of shadows and judgment. There, he would preside over the weighing of souls, ensuring that Ma'at, the divine order, remained intact, even in the land of the dead. Isis, now alone once more, concealed herself deep within the marshes, knowing that Set would stop at nothing to destroy both her and the unborn heir of Osiris. The god of chaos, upon learning that his brother's body had been recovered, flew into a rage. His fear was not merely of Osiris's return, but of the prophecy that spoke of a son who would rise against him. Determined to erase all traces of Osiris, Set scoured the land until he discovered the hidden chest once again. In a final act of brutality, He tore the body of Osiris into 14 pieces and scattered them across the length and breadth of Egypt, each fragment cast into rivers, deserts, and forests, believing that by doing so, he could shatter the legacy of his brother forever. But Set underestimated the devotion of Isis. With unwavering resolve, she embarked on yet another quest, this time to retrieve every piece of Osiris's body. Guided by her magic and the whispers of the natural world, she traveled across Egypt. Each fragment she found was wrapped in linen and honored with sacred rites, transforming sorrow into reverence. Wherever Isis found a piece, she built a shrine, and thus the first temples of Osiris were born, places where mortals could connect with the divine, and where the story of death and resurrection would be told for generations to come. Yet, despite all her efforts, one piece eluded her, the sacred phallus of Osiris, which had been swallowed by a fish in the Nile. Undeterred, Isis used her magic to fashion a replacement, completing the form of Osiris. It was not merely an act of restoration, but a symbol that even in the face of destruction, life could be reborn. With the body reassembled, Isis performed the final rites, allowing Osiris to fully assume his role as the eternal king of the underworld. As the moon waxed and waned over the marshes, Isis gave birth to Horus in secret. The cries of the newborn god echoed softly through the reeds, a quiet declaration that hope had not been extinguished. Isis nurtured her son in hiding, teaching him the ways of wisdom, strength, and the importance of balance. She knew that one day Horus would face Set, and that the outcome of their struggle would determine the fate of Egypt itself. Meanwhile, Set tightened his grip over the land. His rule was harsh and unpredictable. The fertile lands began to wither under his influence. Storms swept across the deserts, and fear settled into the hearts of mortals. The balance that Osiris had so carefully maintained was unraveling, and only the rise of Horus could restore what had been lost. Years passed as Horus grew under the watchful eye of his mother. His connection to the divine falcon gave him sight beyond sight, and strength that would one day rival the mightiest of gods. Yet Isis urged patience, for the time to confront Set had not yet come. The young god needed to understand not just the power of vengeance, but the wisdom of justice. In the shadows of Egypt's temples and the hidden corners of the marshes, whispers began to spread, tales of a child born of Osiris, a falcon who would soar above chaos and bring order once more. Set heard these rumors and grew restless, sensing that his greatest threat was no longer in the grave, but waiting in the wings. The days of hiding were drawing to an end. Horus, no longer a fragile child, stood tall beneath the open sky. His wings of destiny unfurled as he gazed across the land that was once his father's. The time of waiting had passed. The teachings of Isis had shaped him into more than a warrior. He was a beacon of Maat, the embodiment of balance, ready to challenge the chaos that Set had unleashed upon Egypt. Isis watched her son with a mixture of pride and concern. She knew that the path ahead was fraught with trials beyond mere combat. For Set was not just a usurper. He was a force of disorder, cunning, and relentless. To defeat him would require more than strength. It would demand wisdom, patience, and the favor of the gods themselves. Before Horus could lay claim to the throne, he had to seek judgment. In the celestial court of the gods, such matters were not decided by force alone. A divine council, presided over by Ra, the sun god, and ultimate authority, would determine who held the rightful claim to rule Egypt. Horus, guided by Isis, presented his case before the assembled gods, declaring his lineage as the son of Osiris and his destiny to restore order. Set, ever defiant, stood before the council as well, arguing that he, through conquest and dominance, had proven himself the stronger ruler. The debate stretched across days and nights, with gods divided in their opinions. Some favored tradition and the bloodline of Osiris. Others feared Set's wrath and saw his rule as inevitable. The scales of justice wavered between legacy and power. Frustrated by the indecision, Set proposed a series of contests to settle the matter, trials that would test strength, endurance, and cunning. Horus accepted, knowing that proving himself in battle would silence those who doubted his right to the throne. Thus began a long and arduous rivalry, where each god sought to outwit and overpower the other in challenges that became legendary among mortals and immortals alike. They transformed into hippopotamuses and battled in the depths of the Nile, their colossal forms stirring the waters into whirlpools. For days they fought beneath the surface, neither yielding until Isis, fearing for her son's life, cast a harpoon enchanted with her magic. But when the weapon struck Horus by mistake, his cries reached her heart, and she withdrew, torn between her desire to protect and her trust in Horus's strength. Set, seizing every opportunity for treachery, did not limit himself to fair contests. On one occasion, he blinded Horus by stealing his eye in a brutal attack. The eye of Horus, a symbol of protection and royal power, was torn from him. Yet Thoth, the wise god of knowledge and the moon, intervened. With his healing arts, he restored Horus's sight and returned the sacred eye, transforming it into a powerful emblem of resilience and restoration. Despite these trials, the Council of Gods remained hesitant. The struggle between Horus and Set became more than a personal feud. It was a reflection of the eternal battle between order and chaos, light and shadow. The gods watched closely, knowing that whichever force prevailed would shape not only Egypt, but the cosmic balance itself. Isis, ever the strategist, understood that brute force alone would not secure victory. In a moment of cunning, she disguised herself and approached Set while he wandered alone. She told him a story of a man whose property had been stolen by a wicked relative and asked if justice should favor the rightful heir or the thief. Set, unaware that he was speaking of his own deeds, declared that the rightful heir must prevail. With his own words, he condemned himself before the gods. When Isis revealed her true identity and the meaning behind her tale, Set was enraged. But the council could not ignore the truth he had spoken. The weight of justice began to tip in favor of Horus. Yet Set was not a being to surrender quietly. He demanded one final challenge, a race across the sky in stone boats, hoping that such an impossible task would bring his rival to ruin. Both gods crafted their vessels. Set, in his deceit, hollowed out a true boat and painted it to appear as stone, while Horus, in honor of the rules, built his boat entirely of stone as commanded. As they set sail upon the waters, Set's false boat carried him swiftly, while Horus's stone vessel began to sink. But Horus, with the cleverness taught by Isis, transformed his boat into a lightweight structure beneath the guise of stone, catching up to Set and exposing his treachery once again. With each act of deception revealed, the gods grew wearied of Set's endless schemes. Ra, whose patience had been tested beyond measure, finally delivered his judgment. Horus, as the true son of Osiris and the embodiment of rightful order, would ascend to the throne of Egypt. Set, though a necessary force of chaos in the grand design, would be cast into the desert, bound to roam the barren lands and rule over storms and desolation. The proclamation echoed through the heavens and across the earth, signaling the restoration of balance. Horus, crowned with the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, stood as the living god-king. His reign marked the return of prosperity. The Nile flowed true once more. The lands bloomed under his watchful eye, and the people rejoiced in the harmony that had been so long denied. Yet even in victory, Horus did not forget the lessons of his struggle. He knew that chaos could never be fully destroyed, only kept in check. Set remained a force in the world, a reminder that disorder lurks at the edges of civilization, waiting for moments of weakness. It was through this understanding that Horus ruled wisely, honoring both strength and balance, ensuring that Ma'at prevailed not through domination, but through harmony. In the realm of the dead, Osiris watched with pride as his son fulfilled the destiny born of love, sacrifice, and resilience. From his throne in the Duat, he guided the souls of mortals, offering judgment with fairness and compassion. His story, though marked by betrayal and death, had become a symbol of eternal life, a promise that even in the darkest moments, rebirth was possible. And Isis, the goddess whose devotion had shaped the fate of gods and men, returned to her place among the stars. Revered as the mother of magic, protector of the throne, and the embodiment of unwavering love, her name would be whispered in prayers for centuries to come, a beacon for those who sought hope amidst despair. As the years unfolded under the reign of Horus, Egypt flourished once more. The temples were filled with offerings, the fields yielded rich harvests, and the people lived in harmony under the watchful eye of their divine ruler. Yet beneath this era of peace, the echoes of the past remained. The tale of Osiris, Isis, and Set was not merely a story of gods, but a reflection of the eternal cycles that governed existence. In every flood of the Nile, the people saw the resurrection of Osiris. The river's rise and fall mirrored his death and rebirth, bringing life to the land after periods of dormancy. Festivals were held in his honor, rituals that reenacted his journey through death and his triumphant return in spirit. The myth had woven itself into the very fabric of daily life, reminding all that even in loss there was renewal. The priests of Osiris tended to his temples with reverence, guarding the mysteries of the afterlife and guiding souls through the rites that would lead them to his judgment hall. It was said that when a mortal died, their heart would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at. If found pure, they would join Osiris in the eternal fields, a paradise where the righteous lived on in peace. If not, their soul would be devoured by Ammit, the fearsome creature that ensured chaos did not seep into the afterlife. Isis, too, became central to the spiritual life of Egypt. Her image, often depicted with outstretched wings, symbolized protection and maternal care. Women prayed to her for fertility, healing, and guidance. Her magic was invoked in times of hardship, and her story served as a testament to the power of love and perseverance. The legend of her search for Osiris and her nurturing of Horus became a beacon for those facing their own struggles. Set, though cast into exile, was never truly absent. His presence lingered in the deserts where the scorching winds howled. In every storm that swept across the sands, Egyptians felt the hand of Set, reminding them that chaos was always near. Yet they understood that even Set had his place in the grand order. Without the desert, there could be no fertile valley. Without challenge, there could be no triumph. Thus, Set was both feared and respected, a necessary adversary in the balance of life. As generations passed, the story of this divine family grew richer with each telling. Scribes recorded the myths on temple walls and papyrus scrolls. Artists carved their images into stone, ensuring that the deeds of Osiris, Isis, Horus, and Set would never be forgotten. The myth became more than history. It became a guide for understanding the world's rhythms, the interplay between light and shadow, order and disorder. Children grew up hearing the tales beneath star-filled skies. Elders spoke of the bravery of Horus, the cunning of Isis, the sacrifice of Osiris, and the relentless force that was Set. These stories shaped the values of a civilization, teaching that righteousness, patience, and wisdom could overcome even the darkest of forces. That death was not an end, but a transition, and that love held the power to bridge even the chasm between worlds. Pilgrimages were made to Abydos, the sacred city where it was believed the head of Osiris was buried. There, amidst grand temples and solemn processions, devotees honored the god who had given them the gift of resurrection. Mystery plays were performed, reenacting the drama of his betrayal, death, and the victorious rise of Horus. These rituals were more than mere ceremonies. They were acts of communion with the divine, a reaffirmation of life's enduring cycle. In the quiet moments of reflection, many pondered the deeper meanings hidden within the myth. They saw in Osiris the embodiment of every human journey, the trials faced, the losses endured, and the hope that beyond suffering there was renewal. In Isis, they found the ideal of unwavering devotion, the strength found not in force, but in love and wisdom. Horus represented the courage to stand against chaos, to claim one's rightful place despite adversity. And Set, the ever-present shadow, reminded them that vigilance was needed to maintain harmony. The influence of this tale extended beyond Egypt's borders. As traders and travelers carried stories along the routes of the ancient world, echoes of Osiris and Isis found their way into distant lands. Their names were spoken in foreign tongues, their symbols adapted into new cultures. Yet the core message remained unchanged, a universal truth about life, death, and the eternal dance between creation and destruction. In time, pharaohs would align themselves with Horus, proclaiming themselves as his earthly embodiment. Upon death, They sought to unite with Osiris in the afterlife, continuing the divine cycle that linked kingship with the heavens. The royal tombs, adorned with spells and carvings, served as gateways to this sacred journey, ensuring that the legacy of the gods lived on through the rulers of men. As the sands of time shifted and dynasties rose and fell, the story endured, carried on the lips of priests, inscribed in the chambers of pyramids, and whispered by the winds that swept across the Nile. It was a story that belonged not just to the gods, but to every soul who sought meaning in the face of mortality. And so, the legacy of Osiris, Isis, and Set became eternal, a testament to the resilience of the spirit, the power of love, and the delicate balance that holds the universe together. Though the gods no longer walked among mortals, their presence was felt in every sunrise, every harvest, every heartbeat that dared to hope beyond the shadows. As centuries passed, the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set continued to weave itself deeper into the soul of Egypt. The cycles of nature, the rise and fall of the Nile, the changing seasons, all mirrored the eternal story that bound gods and mortals alike. Every year, the people gathered to reenact the passion of Osiris, a sacred drama that reminded them of the fragile balance between life and death, between order and chaos. The rituals began with mourning, a solemn reflection on the betrayal and death of Osiris. Priests and devotees donned dark garments, their chants echoing through the temples and along the riverbanks. The air grew heavy with incense as lamentations filled the streets. Yet beneath the sorrow was the quiet anticipation of what was to come, for they knew that death was only a passage, and that Osiris would rise again, as he always did. These ceremonies were more than mere remembrance. They were acts of magic in themselves. Each word spoken, each gesture made, was believed to renew the very forces that sustained the world. By honoring Osiris, the people reaffirmed the cosmic order, ensuring that Ma'at prevailed over the lurking threat of Isfet, the chaos that Set embodied. Isis, too, was honored in these rites. Her image carried through the crowds, wings outstretched in eternal protection. Women sang hymns to the goddess, who had shown that love and determination could transcend even the grip of death. Her story inspired generations to believe in resilience, to trust that even in moments of despair, the light of hope would return. In quiet villages along the Nile, farmers looked to the flooding waters as a sign that Osiris lived on. When the river swelled and nourished the land, it was seen as his life force flowing back into the earth. Fields blossomed where once they lay barren, a testament to the promise that life would always follow death. The people understood that their survival was tied not just to the river, but to the divine cycle it represented. Meanwhile, the temples of Horus stood as symbols of vigilance and strength, his falcon gaze watching over Egypt from towering columns and sanctuaries carved into stone. The story of his battle with Set became a lesson passed from father to son, a reminder that every generation must face its own trials to preserve harmony. The image of the Eye of Horus adorned amulets and tombs, a symbol of protection and the enduring power of restoration. Set, though cast into the desolation of the desert, was never entirely banished from the hearts of men. In every sandstorm, and in every act of discord, his presence was felt. Yet the Egyptians, in their wisdom, did not seek to destroy him. They knew that chaos, though feared, was a necessary part of existence. Without challenge, there could be no growth. Without darkness, the light would hold no meaning. And so, Set was both feared and invoked. Warriors called upon his strength before battle. Travelers prayed to him for safe passage through the treacherous sands. His duality served as a constant reminder that even the gods bore complexities, that within each force of destruction there lay the potential for protection and power. As the dynasties advanced, pharaohs continued to align themselves with Horus during life and with Osiris in death. This divine connection legitimized their rule. Each coronation echoed the moment Horus claimed his rightful throne. Each burial mirrored the journey of Osiris into the afterlife. The king was not merely a ruler, but a living participant in the eternal drama that shaped the cosmos. The pyramids and grand temples stood as silent witnesses to this belief, their walls etched with spells and depictions of the gods, ensuring that the stories would endure long after the voices of those who carved them faded into history. The grandeur of these monuments was not just for the glory of kings, but as anchors to the divine, connecting the mortal world with the timeless realm of the gods. In distant lands, travelers spoke of Egypt as a place where death was not feared, but embraced as part of a greater journey. They marveled at the intricate rituals and the deep reverence for the afterlife. At the heart of it all was the tale of Osiris, the god who had died, risen, and offered humanity the promise of immortality through righteousness. And so, beneath the stars that glittered over the desert sands, the people of Egypt continued to live in harmony with their myths, finding comfort in the knowledge that as long as they honored the gods, as long as they upheld Ma'at, the cycle would continue. Life would return. Order would prevail, and the legacy of Osiris, Isis, and Horus would endure beyond the reach of time itself. In the heart of Egypt's sacred cities, where the pillars of temples reached toward the heavens and the scent of lotus flowers drifted on the breeze, the mysteries of Osiris deepened. Among the priests of his cult, knowledge was guarded closely, for within the story of death and resurrection lay secrets not meant for all eyes. The mysteries of Osiris were rites known only to the initiated, ceremonies that promised not only understanding, but transformation. These sacred rituals were said to guide the soul through the perils of the duat, revealing the hidden paths that led to eternal life. The priests taught that Osiris's journey through death was a map for every human soul. Each trial he faced, each fragment of his being restored by Isis, mirrored the challenges awaiting mortals beyond the veil. To partake in these mysteries was to align oneself with the eternal rhythm of the cosmos, to prepare for the day when one's heart would be weighed against the feather of truth. In darkened chambers lit by flickering torches, initiates would gather, their faces obscured by ceremonial masks, their voices joined in chants older than memory. They walked symbolically through the death of Osiris, feeling the weight of betrayal, the stillness of the tomb, and finally, the triumph of rebirth. When they emerged from these rites, they were no longer the same, for they had touched the essence of eternity, and carried within them the quiet certainty that death held no true power over the righteous. Meanwhile, Stories of Isis's magic continued to inspire healers and sages. Her spells were inscribed on papyri and whispered in the halls of medicine. Women in childbirth called upon her name. The sick invoked her blessings, and those who sought protection wore amulets bearing her likeness. The goddess who had mended the broken body of Osiris was seen as the ultimate healer, a source of life's renewal in every corner of existence. The cult of Set, though far more secretive, also persisted. In remote deserts, where few dared to tread, his followers embraced the raw force of chaos. They saw in Set not evil, but untamed power, a necessary storm that tested the strength of mortals and gods alike. Their rites were harsh, their symbols marked by jagged lines and desert beasts, yet even they understood the balance. For without the rule of Ma'at, chaos would consume all. And so, they too paid homage to the order they defied, recognizing the delicate dance between opposition. As Egypt expanded its influence, absorbing new cultures and ideas, the tale of Osiris adapted. Hellenistic scholars, fascinated by Egyptian wisdom, drew parallels between Osiris and their own deities. They saw echoes of Dionysus in his death and rebirth. They marveled at the concept of a god who ruled the afterlife not as a tyrant, but as a just king. The fusion of beliefs enriched the myth, allowing it to transcend borders and speak to universal truths. Even as foreign rulers took the throne, they adopted the symbols of Horus and Osiris, understanding that to rule Egypt was to become part of its sacred narrative. The temples continued to thrive, their walls recording prayers in multiple languages, yet always returning to the core story that had sustained the land for millennia. The sands of time shifted once more. Civilizations rose and fell, but the Nile kept flowing, carrying with it the whispers of a story too powerful to be buried. In quiet corners of the ancient world, philosophers and mystics pondered the meaning of resurrection, of divine justice, and of the eternal bond between love and life. For as long as the stars traced their paths across the night sky, as long as the rivers swelled and receded with the pulse of the earth, the legacy of Osiris, Isis, and Set endured, not just as a myth, but as a reflection of the human spirit's unyielding quest for harmony amidst chaos, for light amidst darkness, and for life beyond the shadow of death. As the centuries unfurled like the endless sands along the Nile, the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set became more than a story told in temples and courts. It became the very heartbeat of Egypt's understanding of existence. The people saw themselves reflected in the eternal cycle. Each life was a journey through the trials of Horus, each death a passage guided by Osiris, and every act of devotion a quiet echo of Isis's unwavering love. In every corner of the land, shrines to Isis blossomed, from grand temples in bustling cities to humble altars in remote villages. Her presence was felt as a nurturing force. Sailors carved her symbol on their boats, calling her the Lady of the Sea. Merchants carried charms bearing her name for protection in foreign lands. Her magic was not confined to the gods, but lived within every whispered prayer and every hope for healing, safety, and guidance. The myth evolved with time. Stories spread of Isis wandering far beyond Egypt's borders, teaching magic to distant peoples. Her wisdom was said to bridge the gap between civilizations, bringing a sense of unity beneath her protective wings. She was no longer just the mother of Horus or the wife of Osiris. She became a universal symbol of the divine feminine, a force of compassion, mystery, and resilience that transcended cultures and eras. Osiris, ruling silently in the Duat, remained the guardian of the afterlife. His court became a place not of fear, but of solemn justice. The Egyptians did not dread death as an end, but prepared for it as a continuation. Tombs were built not merely as resting places, but as gateways, each filled with texts and spells designed to navigate the perils of the underworld and reach Osiris's throne, where a righteous soul could dwell in peace for eternity. The Book of the Dead, filled with hymns and incantations, guided mortals through this journey. At its heart was the promise that those who lived in accordance with Ma'at would stand before Osiris with light hearts. The weighing of the heart ceremony, where one soul was measured against the feather of truth, became a central image in the Egyptian mind. It was a reminder that life was a preparation for a greater existence beyond the veil. Set's presence lingered on the edges of this spiritual landscape. While feared, he was still invoked when the forces of chaos needed to be confronted. Soldiers etched his symbols onto their weapons, understanding that to face disorder, one must channel its strength without succumbing to it. Set became the embodiment of necessary adversity, the storm that tested the endurance of both mortals and gods. In this way, the Egyptians embraced complexity. They knew that life was not a simple struggle between good and evil, but a delicate balance where every force had its place. Osiris and Set were not merely opposites, but parts of a greater whole. The story reminded them that light only held meaning because of the shadows it cast, and that peace was valuable because it had been won through struggle. As the Ptolemaic period dawned, blending Greek and Egyptian traditions, the worship of Isis spread even further. Her temples rose across the Mediterranean, from Alexandria to Rome. Her image adorned coins and statues, her name spoken in languages far removed from the Nile's shores. In these new lands, she was revered as a goddess of fertility, magic, and the sea. Her myth adapted, but the essence remained a symbol of enduring love and the mysteries that bind life together. Even as empires shifted and new religions emerged, the echoes of Isis's influence persisted. Philosophers spoke of her veiled figure as the representation of hidden wisdom. Mystics saw in her story the blueprint of spiritual awakening. The sacred union of Isis and Osiris became a metaphor for the soul's journey toward enlightenment, where death was but a transformation and love was the guiding light through darkness. The cult of Osiris remained strong in Egypt, his festivals drawing thousands who reenacted his resurrection. The belief in his eternal kingship over the afterlife gave comfort to those who faced the unknown. The rituals surrounding death, embalming, and burial were steeped in the conviction that Osiris waited beyond, ready to welcome those who had lived justly. And so, through changing dynasties and shifting sands, the story endured. It was whispered in the chambers of priests, sung by farmers tending their fields, etched into stone by artisans who knew their work would outlive them. The myth was no longer just about gods. It was about the human condition, about the cycles of loss and renewal that every soul would come to know. The Nile continued its eternal flow, carrying with it the memories of a civilization deeply intertwined with its gods. As long as the river ran, as long as the stars turned above, the tale of Osiris, Isis, and Set would remain, a quiet assurance that even in the face of betrayal, death, and chaos, there was always the promise of rebirth and the enduring power of love to heal what had been broken. In the twilight of ancient Egypt's grandeur, as foreign powers cast their gaze upon the land of pyramids and pharaohs, the sacred stories continued to pulse beneath the surface. Though the gods were no longer seen walking among mortals, their presence lingered in every stone, every ritual, and every heart that still believed in the old ways. Isis, more than any other deity, had transcended the boundaries of Egypt. Her worship had become a beacon across continents. In Rome, her temple stood proudly beside those of Jupiter and Venus. Her priests conducted ceremonies by the Tiber, mirroring those once held along the Nile. The mysteries of Isis attracted seekers from all walks of life, drawn by the promise of hidden wisdom and the comforting embrace of a goddess who understood both sorrow and triumph. Initiates into her cult spoke of a profound transformation, of shedding the illusions of the material world to glimpse the eternal truths she guarded. They viewed Isis not only as the mother of Horus or the devoted wife of Osiris, but as the embodiment of nature itself, veiled, mysterious, yet nurturing all life. Her image, often depicted holding the infant Horus, resonated deeply, a universal symbol of motherhood, protection, and divine connection. Osiris, too, found a place in the hearts of those beyond Egypt's fading borders. His story of death and resurrection paralleled emerging ideas about the soul's immortality. Philosophers and spiritual leaders looked to his myth as a metaphor for inner renewal. The god who had once ruled the fertile banks of the Nile now reigned in the collective imagination as a symbol of hope beyond death. Even Set, the ever-present force of chaos, was remembered. Though his worship waned, his role in the myth endured as a vital counterbalance. His existence reminded all who heard the tale that challenges were inevitable, but that they could be faced with courage, wisdom, and resilience. The storm would always pass, and from its wake, order would rise again. As Christianity began to spread across Egypt, many of the symbols and stories familiar to the ancient world found new forms. Yet beneath these evolving beliefs, the essence of the old myths remained. Some saw reflections of Isis in the veneration of the Virgin Mary, a continuation of the Divine Mother archetype. The themes of death, resurrection, and eternal life echoed in new teachings, carrying forward the wisdom that had been nurtured along the Nile for thousands of years. The great temples slowly fell silent, their columns worn by wind and time, but the stones still whispered of gods who had once shaped the destiny of men. Travelers who stumbled upon these ruins felt the weight of history pressing upon them, sensing that these were not mere remnants of a forgotten civilization, but gateways to a deeper understanding of life's mysteries. Scribes and scholars preserved what they could, copying texts that spoke of Osiris's journey through the Duat, of Isis's tireless quest, of Horus's victory and Set's exile. These writings would survive in hidden libraries and forgotten scrolls, waiting for future generations to rediscover the ancient wisdom they contain. And so, while the world changed and empires rose and fell, the core of the story endured, not bound to a single place or time, but living within the human spirit. The tale of Osiris, Isis, and Set was never just about gods. It was about the eternal dance of life and death, love and loss, order and chaos. A story as old as time, yet forever new in the hearts of those who dared to listen. For as long as humanity sought answers to the mysteries of existence, as long as they gazed at the stars and wondered about the journey beyond this life, the legacy of these ancient deities would remain, carried not just in words, but in the silent understanding that from every ending comes a beginning, and that through devotion, wisdom, and courage, even the deepest wounds could give rise to eternal life. As the ancient world faded into memory, and the great monuments of Egypt stood like silent sentinels beneath drifting sands, the essence of Osiris, Isis, and Set lingered in ways unseen. Though the priests no longer chanted in the grand halls of temples, and the sacred rituals had been replaced by new faiths, the deeper truths carried by their story remained etched into the fabric of human consciousness. In quiet moments, beneath starlit skies, or in the stillness of dawn, there were those who felt the subtle pull of ancient wisdom. The rhythms of nature, the cycles of life and death, continued to mirror the eternal tale once whispered along the banks of the Nile. The Nile itself, though no longer the lifeblood of a mighty empire, flowed on, as if carrying the memories of a civilization that had long understood the delicate balance between order and chaos. Historians and philosophers, uncovering fragments of papyrus and inscriptions worn by time, began to piece together the legacy left behind. They marveled at the sophistication of a people who had woven their understanding of the cosmos into every aspect of daily life. At the heart of it all, they found the enduring myth of Osiris, a god who had shown that death was not to be feared, but embraced as part of a greater journey. Isis, too, captivated the imagination of scholars and seekers. Her image, veiled in mystery yet radiating compassion, became a symbol for those who searched for hidden truths. Artists painted her as the eternal mother, as poets invoked her name when speaking of devotion and resilience. She transcended mythology to become an archetype, a guiding light for anyone who faced loss and sought hope beyond despair. Even Set, once seen only as a harbinger of chaos, was reconsidered through the lens of wisdom. Modern minds began to understand that his role was not simply that of a villain, but a necessary force in the unfolding of life. Without challenge, growth could not occur. Without disruption, there could be no renewal. Set embodied the storms that shaped the soul, harsh, but essential in forging strength and clarity. The legacy of Horus lived on in symbols carried through time. The Eye of Horus, once a sacred emblem of protection and restoration, found its place in various cultures as a mark of vigilance and insight. It adorned amulets, architecture, and works of art, a quiet reminder that healing and wholeness were always possible after loss. That vision, both physical and spiritual, could be restored even after the darkest of trials. As the modern world advanced, with its machines and cities rising where ancient temples once stood, the whispers of these gods remain, not in grand rituals, but in the quiet recognition of patterns that echoed their story. The ebb and flow of fortune, the struggles between order and disorder in society, the enduring power of love to bind people together, all reflected the timeless truths carried within the myth. The story of Osiris, Isis, and Set became a bridge between the ancient and the modern, a thread connecting humanity across millennia, reminding all who heard it that beneath the surface of daily life, deeper forces were always at play. It offered comfort in times of uncertainty, teaching that no matter how great the fall, resurrection was always within reach, and that the bonds of loyalty, love, and justice could withstand even the most destructive storms. In this way, the myth continued to live, not confined to the pages of history books or the ruins of temples, but within the hearts of those who understood that every ending holds the seed of a new beginning, that the journey through darkness leads to light, and that the legacy of the gods is not found in immortality alone, but in the enduring lessons they offer to those willing to listen. Far beyond the borders of ancient Egypt, the echoes of Osiris, Isis, and Set traveled through the currents of time, carried by storytellers, philosophers, and dreamers who found in their tales something profoundly human. Across cultures and continents, the themes of betrayal, loss, love, and renewal resonated deeply. For these were not merely the experiences of gods, but reflections of every soul's journey through life. In the winding streets of distant cities, where scholars gathered to ponder the mysteries of existence, the myth was retold in new forms. Some spoke of Osiris as the archetype of the dying and resurrected god, a symbol of nature's cycles, where life springs anew after the cold grip of winter. Others saw Isis as the eternal feminine force, the embodiment of wisdom, nurturing, and the magic that binds the universe together. The tale's influence seeped into art, philosophy, and spiritual traditions. Statues of Isis nursing Horus inspired images that would appear centuries later in other religious contexts. The eye of Horus became a symbol not only of protection but of insight, a reminder that true vision comes from enduring hardship and emerging whole on the other side. Mystics interpreted the dismemberment and restoration of Osiris as a metaphor for the soul's journey, fragmented by the trials of life, yet capable of being made whole through love, knowledge, and inner transformation. They saw in Isis's quest a guide for navigating sorrow and finding purpose amidst chaos. Her unwavering devotion became a beacon for those who sought to mend what had been broken within themselves. Even Set, often misunderstood, was recognized by some as the necessary force that drives change. Without disruption, there could be no evolution. The storms he brought were painful, but they cleared the path for renewal. His role in the myth served as a reminder that adversity, while daunting, was an essential part of growth. That through facing the forces of chaos, one could discover inner strength and clarity of purpose. In hidden circles of wisdom, the myth was preserved not just as a story of ancient gods, but as a living teaching. Those who studied the deeper meanings found guidance for their own lives. They understood that the death of Osiris was not an end, but an initiation, that the resurrection was not merely a return, but an ascent to a higher state of being. It was a promise that through suffering, one could attain wisdom, and through loss, one could discover the eternal within. As centuries turned to millennia, the sands continued to shift over Egypt's monuments, yet the essence of the myth remained untouched by time. The pyramids stood as silent testaments to a civilization that had glimpsed the eternal, their stones whispering to those who dared to listen. Speaking of gods who once walked among mortals and left behind a legacy far greater than power or dominion, the story endured because it spoke to the heart of what it means to be human, to face betrayal and loss, to find solace in love, to confront chaos and emerge stronger, and to believe that beyond death lies not oblivion, but transformation. The myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set was a mirror held up to the soul, reflecting the trials, triumphs, and hopes that define the human experience. And so, in quiet moments of reflection, beneath the stars that have watched over countless generations, the tale continues to live, not just in words, but in the silent understanding that life's greatest truths are found in the balance between light and shadow, in the courage to face the storm, and in the faith that, like Osiris, we too can rise again when all seems lost. In the quiet expanse of the desert, where the winds whispered secrets to the dunes and the stars stretched endlessly across the night sky, the memory of the gods lingered. Though the voices of priests had long since faded and the temples had surrendered to time, the story of Osiris, Isis, and Set lived on in the silence. It was no longer just carved in stone or inked on papyrus. It had become part of the landscape itself, woven into the fabric of existence. Travelers who crossed the vast sands would often pause beneath the open sky, feeling the presence of something ancient and eternal. They may not have known the full tale, but in the shifting patterns of the stars and the rhythm of the desert winds, they sensed the echoes of a drama that once shaped the destiny of gods and men. For the story of Osiris was not bound by temples or scrolls. It was a reflection of the cycles that governed all life. The moon, with its waxing and waning light, became a celestial reminder of Horus's restored eye, each phase telling a story of loss, healing, and return. The people who still gazed upward saw more than a distant orb. They saw the eternal promise that even when light fades, it is destined to shine again. Just as Horus reclaimed his strength after his battles with Set, so too would the moon reclaim its fullness after every darkened night. In the hidden corners of surviving villages, elders told fragments of the old myths, tales passed down through generations. The names of Osiris and Isis carried a sense of reverence, even if the details had softened with time. Their story became less about specific events and more about the enduring truths they represented. That love could overcome even death, that order could rise from chaos, and that every soul carried within it the potential for renewal. Some believed that the Nile itself remembered, that its steady pulse through the heart of Egypt was a song in honor of Osiris. When the river flooded, bringing life to the parched earth, it was said to be his spirit returning, a quiet affirmation that the land and its people were still bound to the ancient covenant of life, death, and rebirth. Farmers, even in later eras, would greet the rising waters with gratitude, unaware that their ancestors had seen in those same waters the lifeblood of a resurrected god. Isis's influence remained strong among those who sought protection and guidance. Women called upon her in childbirth, Healers invoked her name when tending to the sick. Her image, whether remembered as a goddess or as a symbol of maternal care, continued to offer comfort. In every act of nurturing, in every gesture of compassion, there was a reflection of Isis's devotion, a quiet testament to the power of love and resilience. Set, too, was remembered in the harshness of the desert storms. When winds howled and sands swallowed paths, people would mutter his name, acknowledging the force of chaos that could never be fully banished. Yet even in fear, there was understanding. Set was not merely a destroyer, but a reminder that life's trials were necessary, that without the storm, the soul would never learn to endure. And without adversity, strength would remain dormant. As historians and explorers from distant lands arrived to study the remnants of Egypt's past, they uncovered more than artifacts. They discovered a worldview that had embraced complexity, that saw divinity not as distant and perfect, but as deeply intertwined with the struggles and triumphs of existence. The myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set revealed a civilization that understood the necessity of balance, where even gods faced loss, conflict, and transformation. These scholars carried the story back to their own cultures, where it inspired new interpretations. Writers, philosophers, and artists found in the ancient tale a source of endless reflection. They recognized that while the names and symbols were Egyptian, the themes belonged to all of humanity: the dance between light and shadow, the pain of betrayal, the hope of resurrection. These were experiences shared across time and place. And so, the myth continued its journey, not as a relic of a forgotten religion, but as a living narrative that spoke to the enduring spirit of mankind. In every corner of the world where the story was told, it adapted, took on new meanings, yet always returned to its core, the promise that no matter how deep the darkness, the light would return. That love, justice, and resilience were forces stronger than death itself. As the story traveled through the corridors of time, it began to intertwine with the dreams and philosophies of many cultures. In lands far from the banks of the Nile, thinkers pondered the symbolism hidden within the myth of Osiris. They saw in his death and resurrection a reflection of nature's eternal cycles, the falling of leaves in autumn and their return in spring, the setting of the sun followed by its inevitable rise. Mystics spoke of Osiris not only as a god of the afterlife, but as a symbol of inner awakening. They believed that just as Osiris had been dismembered and restored, so too must the human soul undergo a breaking and remaking. In the trials of life, pieces of the self could be scattered, but through love, wisdom, and perseverance, wholeness could be reclaimed. Isis's quest became a metaphor for the journey within, the search for lost parts of the spirit. Guided by devotion and the quiet magic of hope, the Eye of Horus continued to captivate imaginations. Scholars debated its meanings as a symbol of protection, healing, or divine vision. Sailors carved it onto their ships to ward off misfortune. Merchants wore it as a talisman against deceit. It was more than a relic of ancient belief. It was a universal sign that wholeness could be restored after harm, that sight, both literal and spiritual, could be regained after blindness. Set's role in this evolving interpretation was no less important. In many traditions, he came to represent the necessary chaos that precedes transformation. Without his betrayal, there could be no resurrection. Without his storms, there would be no testing of strength. Philosophers began to see him not as evil incarnate, but as a force that provoked growth, a catalyst that pushed gods and mortals alike toward their destinies. As the Renaissance dawned and curiosity about ancient wisdom revived, artists and thinkers rediscovered Egypt's myths. They saw in the story of Osiris a profound allegory for the human condition. The balance between reason and passion, order and chaos, life and death. The myth became a source of inspiration for those seeking to understand the mysteries of existence beyond the confines of dogma and doctrine. In hidden societies and esoteric circles, the tale was preserved as part of a greater tapestry of ancient knowledge. The figure of Isis, veiled and enigmatic, stood as a symbol of truth waiting to be unveiled by those willing to seek it. Her association with the moon, the tides, and the unseen forces of nature made her a central figure in teachings about the interconnectedness of all things. She represented the wisdom that comes not from conquest, but from patience, compassion, and insight. Osiris, in these interpretations, became the eternal king not just of the dead, but of the awakened soul. His throne in the underworld was seen as a seat of judgment, yes, but also as a beacon for those who had transcended fear. To align with Osiris was to embrace the cycle of death and rebirth within oneself, to understand that endings were beginnings in disguise, and that true immortality lay not in escaping death, but in transforming through it. Set, though still the antagonist in the ancient tale, was acknowledged as the shadow that gives shape to the light. Without his presence, the virtues of Horus would have remained untested. The victories of the spirit would have held no meaning without the trials that forged them. Thus, Set became a symbol of the challenges that each person must face to realize their fullest potential. And so, the myth persisted, not merely as a story to be told, but as a guide for those navigating the complexities of life. It reminded all who encountered it that within every betrayal lies the seed of resilience, within every death, the promise of renewal, and within every storm, the opportunity to emerge stronger and wiser. The legacy of Osiris, Isis, and Set was no longer confined to the sands of Egypt. It had become a universal narrative, a quiet companion to those who sought understanding in a world where light and shadow constantly intertwined. And as long as there were those who looked beyond the surface, who listened to the whispers of ancient truths, the story would continue to breathe, offering guidance, comfort, and the timeless promise that life, in all its forms, endures. As the modern age unfolded, with its towering cities and restless pursuit of progress, the ancient world seemed ever more distant. Yet, beneath the surface of this fast-moving era, the quiet heartbeat of timeless stories continued to echo. The myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set, though born on the banks of the Nile thousands of years ago, still found its place in the hearts and minds of those drawn to deeper truths. In libraries and museums, scholars pored over faded papyri and fragments of stone. They traced the lines of hieroglyphs with reverence, uncovering the wisdom of a civilization that had long understood the delicate balance between life and death. Each discovery was a reminder that the people of ancient Egypt had looked beyond the material world, seeking harmony not just in their surroundings, but within their very souls. The story of Osiris was no longer confined to religious belief. It became a symbol of the universal human experience. The idea that from every fall there could be a rising. That loss was not the end, but a passage to something greater. In a world that often felt chaotic and uncertain, the myth offered a quiet assurance. That order could emerge from disorder. That justice, though delayed, would prevail. And that love was a force stronger than time itself. Isis, veiled in mystery, continued to inspire those who sought wisdom beyond the visible. Her image appeared in art, literature, and spiritual teachings, representing the eternal feminine, the guardian of hidden knowledge, and the embodiment of compassion that heals all wounds. To call upon Isis was to seek guidance through life's darkest moments, trusting that her magic would reveal a path where none seemed to exist. Set's legacy, too, found relevance in a modern world filled with constant change and challenge. No longer viewed solely as a figure of malice, he became a symbol of necessary disruption, the force that breaks stagnation and compels growth. People began to understand that without the storms Set brought, there would be no opportunity to rebuild stronger foundations. His chaos was not meaningless destruction, but a catalyst for transformation. The Eye of Horus, still recognized across cultures, adorned jewelry, architecture, and symbols of protection. It served as a reminder that even after profound injury, wholeness could be restored. That true vision came not from avoiding hardship, but from surviving it. The Eye watched over those who carried it, offering silent reassurance that clarity and strength would return after every trial. In philosophical circles, the myth was revisited as an allegory for personal development. Osiris's death represented the dissolution of the old self. Isis's quest symbolized the search for meaning amidst fragmentation, and Horus's victory reflected the emergence of a renewed, integrated being. Set, ever present, was the inner struggle that made such transformation possible. As humanity ventured further into the unknown, exploring the depths of the oceans, the vastness of space, and the complexities of the human mind, the ancient story remained relevant. It spoke to the eternal cycles present in all things, the rise and fall of civilizations, the ebb and flow of fortunes, the birth, death, and rebirth that defined not only nature, but the human spirit. The pyramids, standing silent beneath the desert sun, continued to captivate the imagination of all who beheld them. They were more than monuments. They were symbols of a civilization's understanding of eternity. And within their shadows, the story of Osiris, Isis, and Set lived on. Not as a relic of the past, but as a beacon for those who understood that true immortality lies in the ideas and values that transcend time. In quiet corners of the world, where seekers still gathered to explore the mysteries of existence, the tale of Osiris, Isis, and Set was told once more. Not as a myth to be studied from a distance, but as a living guide for navigating the complexities of life. Those who listened closely heard in the story a reflection of their own journeys. The betrayals endured, the losses mourned, the moments of hope rekindled after despair. Isis became a symbol for those who refused to surrender to grief. Her endless search for Osiris resonated with anyone who had ever sought to reclaim something precious lost to the tides of fate. Her magic was not just in spells and incantations, but in the quiet strength to continue when all seemed broken. She showed that love, when combined with wisdom and perseverance, could mend even the deepest wounds. Osiris, the king of the afterlife, offered a vision of death that was not an end, but a transformation. In a world often afraid of mortality, his story provided comfort, reminding all who heard it that beyond the veil lay not darkness, but a realm of justice and renewal. To live a life in harmony with Ma'at was to ensure that when the final journey came, one would stand before Osiris with a heart light as a feather, ready to step into eternity. Horus's triumph over Set inspired those facing their own battles against chaos. His story was not one of simple revenge, but of rightful restoration. He taught that true victory comes not from hatred, but from the courage to uphold balance. His eye, once torn away and then healed, symbolized the resilience required to face life's challenges and emerge stronger, with clearer vision and purpose. Set remained the shadow that all must confront, the force that disrupts comfort and demands adaptation. Yet, through understanding his role, people learned to embrace adversity as part of growth. The storms he brought were no longer seen purely as threats, but as opportunities to test, resolve, and discover hidden strengths. Without Set, the soul would never be tempered by fire, never know the depths of its own endurance. In this way, the myth transcended its origins. It became a mirror in which every person could see aspects of their own story reflected, the cycles of loss and renewal, the tension between order and chaos, the power of love to heal, and the eternal promise that after every ending, a new beginning awaits. As the modern world grew louder, filled with distractions and the constant rush of time, those who paused to listen found solace in these ancient whispers. The story of Osiris, Isis, and Set offered a reminder to slow down, to recognize the deeper currents beneath the surface of daily life. It spoke of patience, of faith in unseen forces, and of the quiet strength that comes from trusting in the cycles of nature and spirit. And so, across generations and cultures, the tale continued to flow like an unseen river beneath the sands of time, guiding those who sought meaning beyond the material, offering a path illuminated by the wisdom of gods who had once walked among mortals, and leaving behind a legacy not of power, but of understanding. That life, in all its complexity, is a journey of constant transformation, where love, balance, and resilience lead the soul toward its eternal home. As time moved forward, and humanity stepped into new eras of discovery and reflection, the ancient story of Osiris, Isis, and Set remained a quiet undercurrent. It was no longer shouted from temple steps or etched freshly into stone, but it lived on in the spaces where people still pondered the mysteries of life. In moments of solitude, when the noise of the world faded, the tale found its voice once more, reminding those who listened that some truths are eternal. The symbolism woven through the myth continued to resonate. The dismemberment of Osiris was seen by many as a metaphor for the fragmentation experienced in every human life. When dreams are broken, when loved ones are lost, when identity itself feels scattered by the winds of fate. But just as Isis searched tirelessly to gather the pieces of her beloved, so too could individuals find the strength to reclaim themselves. to restore what had been torn apart by time and circumstance. Isis's devotion became a guide for those navigating grief. She taught that mourning was not a passive act, but a journey, a process of seeking, of holding on to love even when all seems lost. Her magic was born not from power alone, but from compassion, from the refusal to let death have the final word. Through her, people learned that healing was possible, not by erasing pain, but by embracing it and transforming it into something enduring. Osiris's role as the ruler of the afterlife offered a vision of death that was gentle and just. In a world often haunted by the unknown, his presence in the duat stood as a beacon. He did not punish the innocent, nor did he rule with fear. Instead, he welcomed those who had lived in harmony with truth. His judgment was fair, reminding all that the way one lived shaped the journey beyond this life. The promise of Osiris was not immortality without merit, but eternal peace earned through balance and righteousness. The image of Horus standing victorious over Set became a symbol of hope for anyone facing overwhelming odds. His battle was not just against an external force, but against the very chaos that threatens to consume order within and without. Horus showed that perseverance, guided by justice, could restore what was rightfully lost. His eye, once shattered, shone brighter after being healed, a testament to the idea that true strength comes from overcoming adversity, not avoiding it. Set's presence in the story continued to serve as a reminder that chaos is an inseparable part of existence. No life is free from disruption, no journey without its storms. But through understanding and resilience, these forces could be navigated. Set was the challenge that spurred growth, the unpredictable wind that forced one to find inner stability. Without him, the victories of Horus would have no meaning, and the restoration of order would never be celebrated. As modern thinkers explored psychology, philosophy, and spiritual growth, they often found parallels in this ancient myth. The struggle between Horus and Set mirrored the inner conflicts faced by every person, the pull between higher purpose and base instincts, between clarity and confusion. The journey of Isis reflected the process of integrating these fragments into a cohesive whole, finding harmony within the self despite the chaos of the external world. Artists continued to draw upon the imagery of the myth. Writers wove its themes into stories of love, loss, and redemption. Musicians echoed its rhythms in compositions that spoke to the cycles of life and death. Even in technology-driven societies, where ancient temples had been replaced by skyscrapers, the essence of the story lingered, reminding people that beneath all progress, the fundamental experiences of the human soul remained unchanged. And so, the tale of Osiris, Isis, and Set endured, not because it belonged to a distant past, but because it spoke to a timeless truth, that every soul, in its own way, walks the path of dismemberment and restoration, faces the storms of chaos, finds solace in love, and seeks the balance that leads to peace. The myth was not just a story to be remembered, but a map for navigating the ever-turning wheel of existence. In the quiet spaces where ancient wisdom meets modern reflection, the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set continued to offer its gentle guidance. It reminded those who paused to listen that life is not a straight path, but a winding journey through light and shadow. Through the voices of these ancient gods, humanity found a mirror, one that reflected not only the struggles of the past, but the ongoing challenges of the present. Isis's enduring image became a symbol for seekers of truth and comfort. Her veiled figure represented the mysteries that lie just beyond human understanding. Those who sought answers to life's deeper questions often found themselves drawn to her. She did not promise easy solutions, but offered the wisdom that comes from patience, devotion, and quiet strength. Her story showed that love could be both fierce and gentle, a force capable of transcending even the most final of boundaries. Osiris remained a figure of serene authority. His role as judge of souls evolved in the minds of those who pondered justice and morality. He was not the punisher, but the one who weighed hearts with compassion, ensuring that truth, rather than power, determined one's fate. In a world often fraught with uncertainty and shifting values, Osiris's presence reminded people of the importance of living in alignment with principles that endure beyond the moment. Fairness, integrity, and balance. Horus, the ever-vigilant falcon, became a symbol of rightful leadership and inner vision. His battles with Set were seen not only as cosmic events, but as personal allegories. Each person faced their own version of Set, the forces of doubt, fear, and disorder that threatened to unseat their sense of purpose. Horus's victory was not absolute domination, but the restoration of harmony. His example encouraged people to face challenges with courage, knowing that perseverance could reclaim what chaos sought to destroy. Set himself, long misunderstood as a mere villain, came to be viewed with a more nuanced understanding. He embodied the disruptive forces necessary for change. Without Set, there would be no movement, no evolution. He was the reminder that comfort and stability, while desirable, could lead to stagnation if left unchallenged. Set's presence urged individuals and societies alike to confront what was broken, to adapt, and to grow stronger through the trials he imposed. Throughout art, literature, and spiritual thought, the myth resurfaced time and again. It became a source of inspiration for those crafting stories of redemption, transformation, and resilience. The cycle of death and rebirth, so central to Osiris's tale, echoed in countless narratives across cultures, reminding humanity that endings are seldom final, and that within every fall lies the potential for a greater rise. The pyramids, standing as timeless guardians of this wisdom, continued to draw those who sought connection with the ancient world. Visitors walked among the ruins, feeling the weight of history pressing gently upon them. Many could not fully explain the sense of awe that filled them, but deep within, they recognized that these stones told a story far greater than any single civilization. They told of a truth that transcended time, that life, death, and rebirth are not merely events, but sacred steps in the journey of existence. And so, in the hum of modern life, amidst the pulse of technology and the rush of progress, the whispers of Osiris, Isis, and Set still found their way into the hearts of those willing to listen. The myth offered a quiet sanctuary, a place where the soul could remember its place within the grand tapestry of being. It reminded all who heard it that the dance between order and chaos is eternal, but within that dance lies the beauty of renewal, the strength of love. and the promise that life, in all its forms, continues beyond every horizon. As centuries gave way to millennia, and the world reshaped itself again and again, the ancient tale of Osiris, Isis, and Set continued to linger like a soft echo in the collective memory of humanity. Though empires rose and fell, languages changed, and new beliefs took hold, the essence of their story quietly endured. Not bound by temples or scrolls, but carried within the human spirit, a reminder that some truths are too deeply woven into existence to ever truly fade. In quiet reflections, people still found meaning in Isis's unwavering devotion. Her journey to restore Osiris resonated with anyone who had faced the pain of loss and dared to hope for healing. She became more than a goddess of magic. She became a symbol of love's endurance, of the strength found in compassion and persistence. Her story whispered that even when the world seems fractured beyond repair, there is always a path, however difficult, toward wholeness. Osiris, the silent king of the afterlife, stood as a beacon for those pondering the mysteries of what lies beyond. His presence offered comfort to those who feared the unknown, reminding them that death was not a void, but a transition into another realm of existence, one governed not by cruelty, but by balance and justice. His tale encouraged people to live with integrity, knowing that every action would one day be weighed, not by harsh judgment, but by a fair and eternal truth. Horus's legacy lived on in every story of resilience. Every time someone stood up against chaos, whether in the world around them or within themselves, they walked the path of Horus. His eye, once torn away and restored, symbolized the ability to recover from even the deepest wounds, to see clearly after confusion, and to emerge stronger after struggle. The falcon god reminded humanity that courage, guided by wisdom, could overcome even the most relentless forces of disorder. Set's shadow remained present, not as a figure of pure evil, but as a necessary force that shaped growth. The storms he brought were symbolic of life's inevitable challenges, disruptions that, while unsettling, forced people to adapt, evolve, and discover inner strength they might never have known otherwise. In understanding Set, humanity learned to accept that chaos is not something to be feared, but something to be navigated. A force that, when balanced by order, drives the cycles of renewal. In modern times, as people searched for meaning in a world often disconnected from ancient traditions, the myth offered quiet guidance. It didn't demand worship or ritual, but invited contemplation. It reminded those who listened that beneath the surface of everyday life, the same eternal patterns played out. The tension between stability and change. The experience of loss, followed by renewal. The search for justice, love, and harmony amidst uncertainty. Artists continued to find inspiration in the story. Painters captured Isis's grace and sorrow. Writers retold the battles of Horus and Set in new forms. Musicians echoed the rhythms of death and rebirth in their compositions. The myth flowed through creative expression, proving that its themes were as relevant today as they were when first spoken beneath the Egyptian sun. Philosophers and spiritual seekers looked to the tale as a framework for understanding personal transformation. They saw in Osiris's death the symbolic end of old identities. In Isis's quest, the journey of self-discovery. In Horus's triumph, the realization of one's true potential. And in Set, the trials that made such growth possible. The story became a map for navigating the inner landscape, guiding individuals through their own cycles of disintegration and renewal. And so, while the names of the gods might not be spoken in daily life, their influence remained, embedded in the way people understood resilience, justice, love, and the necessity of facing chaos. The myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set was no longer just a story of ancient Egypt. It was a timeless reflection of the human journey, a reminder that even in a changing world, the core experiences of life remain constant, and that within every heart lies the power to endure, to heal, and to rise again. In the quiet hours before dawn, when the world rests between darkness and light, the echoes of ancient wisdom seem to speak the loudest. It is in these moments when the mind drifts beyond the noise of daily life that the story of Osiris, Isis, and Set finds its way back into consciousness. Not as a distant myth, but as a gentle reminder of the cycles that continue to shape every life. Isis's image, with her outstretched wings, became a symbol of protection across cultures. Even those who no longer remembered her name could feel the essence of what she represented, the nurturing force that shields and guides. In times of uncertainty, people still sought comfort in the idea that there exists a presence, whether divine or within themselves, that carries the strength to heal and to endure. The legacy of Isis was not confined to statues or temples, but lived in every act of compassion and every gesture of unwavering love. Osiris's role as the guardian of the afterlife inspired reflections on the nature of justice. His story encouraged a deeper understanding that true judgment is not rooted in fear, but in balance. In a world often preoccupied with external success, his presence whispered that what truly matters is the weight of the heart, the quiet choices made each day in alignment with truth and integrity. Osiris reminded humanity that while life is fleeting, the values one upholds echo far beyond the final breath. Horus, the falcon soaring above, remained a symbol of vision and rightful power. His battles against Set were echoed in every struggle to reclaim order amidst personal or societal chaos. Each time someone stood up for what was just. Each time resilience carried a person through hardship, the spirit of Horus lived on. His restored eye served as a beacon for those seeking clarity after confusion, strength after vulnerability, and victory, not through domination, but through restoration of balance. Set, the eternal force of disruption, continued to be recognized as more than a bringer of misfortune. He was the challenge that shaped character, the unexpected storm that revealed hidden resilience. People began to see that without moments of disorder, growth would stagnate. Set's presence in the myth taught acceptance of life's unpredictable nature and offered the wisdom that through facing chaos, one could emerge transformed, tempered like steel forged in fire. Throughout the modern world, as people faced new forms of uncertainty, whether personal, societal, or global, the ancient story offered quiet guidance. It did not promise a life free from hardship, but revealed that within every trial lies the seed of renewal. The tale reminded all who heard it that love, justice, and resilience are eternal forces, and that even in the face of betrayal, loss, and upheaval, there is always a path forward. In academic halls and spiritual retreats, in works of art and whispered meditations, the myth found new life. It adapted to changing times while preserving its core. The story became a companion for those navigating grief, transformation, and the search for meaning. It offered a lens through which to view life's challenges not as endings, but as necessary passages toward greater wholeness. And so, beneath the surface of a world ever in motion, the legacy of Osiris, Isis, and Set continued to flow like an unseen river, connecting past to present, guiding those who listen toward a deeper understanding of themselves and the cycles that govern all existence. It was a reminder that even when the sands of time bury the temples and the names fade from memory, the truths carried within this ancient story remain, whispering that after every fall comes a rising, after every shadow, the return of light, and through it all, love endures as the force that binds the universe together. As the world moved further into an age defined by technology and rapid change, the quiet wisdom of ancient stories like that of Osiris, Isis, and Set became even more precious. In a time where progress often pulled attention outward towards screens, machines, and endless noise, the timeless myth invited people to turn inward, to remember the cycles that govern not only nature, but the human spirit. Isis's enduring presence became a symbol for those seeking balance amidst the rush. Her story was a gentle reminder that some things cannot be hurried, that healing, understanding, and love unfold in their own time. In the face of a world obsessed with immediacy, Isis stood as a quiet force of patience and devotion, teaching that true magic lies not in grand displays, but in the steady, unwavering commitment to restore what has been lost. Osiris, the silent king beyond the veil, offered a counterpoint to the modern fear of endings. His story whispered that death, whether of a life, a chapter, or an identity, was never truly final, but part of a greater transformation. In moments when people faced uncertainty, when paths seemed to close or familiar things faded away, the presence of Osiris reminded them to trust the process of renewal, to know that beyond every apparent ending, something new awaited, shaped by the integrity with which one had lived. Horus's legacy resonated deeply in a world where challenges often felt overwhelming. His victory over Set was not a tale of easy triumph, but of perseverance through repeated trials. His eye, torn away and then restored, reflected the human journey of losing sight of purpose, of hope, and then finding it again through resilience and guidance. Horus encouraged all who faced their own battles to stand firm, knowing that even when wounded, they could heal, and even when order was shattered, it could be rebuilt. Set, in this ever-changing world, revealed his presence in every disruption, every unexpected turn, every storm that forced people to adapt and rethink their course. His role became clearer to those who reflected on the myth. Set was not the enemy to be destroyed, but the challenge to be faced, a necessary force that kept life dynamic, reminding humanity that growth rarely comes from comfort, but from facing the unknown with courage. In quiet moments, away from the noise, people still felt the pull of these ancient truths. Whether walking through nature, sitting beneath a star-filled sky, or reflecting during times of personal transformation, the story of Osiris, Isis, and Set found its way into the heart. It offered perspective that life's hardships were part of a larger rhythm, that love, justice, and resilience were constants, even when everything else seemed to shift. Writers, philosophers, and spiritual teachers continued to draw upon the myth, weaving its themes into modern narratives, exploring how the ancient cycles applied to contemporary struggles. The tale became a source of comfort for those navigating grief, change, and the search for meaning, reminding them that they were part of a story far older and wiser than any passing trend or fleeting hardship. And so, even as cities grew taller and the pace of life quickened, the quiet river of this ancient wisdom flowed beneath it all, unseen by many, but always present for those who chose to listen. The myth remained a sanctuary, a place where the soul could rest, reflect, and remember that beyond every trial lies renewal, that love can heal what chaos tries to destroy, and that the balance between order and disorder is not a battle to be won, but a dance to be understood. In the ever-turning wheel of human experience, the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set offered a timeless compass, guiding those who sought meaning through the inevitable cycles of life. As individuals faced moments of disarray, personal loss, or profound change, they found echoes of their own journey reflected in the ancient tale. It was in these quiet recognitions that the true power of the story revealed itself, not as distant legend, but as a living truth embedded in the fabric of existence. Isis, the eternal seeker and healer, stood as a beacon for those navigating the complexities of love and loss. Her devotion was not passive. It was an active force, showing that love is not merely an emotion, but a commitment to restore, to protect, and to nurture even when faced with insurmountable odds. Her story became a source of strength for anyone who had ever gathered the broken pieces of their life and, with patience and care, begun the slow work of mending what had been shattered. Osiris remained the quiet sovereign of transitions. His tale reminded people that every threshold crossed, whether joyful or sorrowful, was part of a greater journey. In a world often fearful of change, his presence offered reassurance that transformation is natural, that death, in all its forms, leads not to oblivion, but to a new state of being. His wisdom encouraged individuals to face the unknown with grace, trusting that when one chapter ends, another begins, shaped by the legacy left behind. Horus's resilience spoke to those standing at the edge of their own inner battles. His victory over Set was not a simple conquest, but a testament to perseverance, guided by purpose and justice. Each person who faced chaos, whether external challenges or inner turmoil, carried the spirit of Horus when they chose to rise, to reclaim order, and to see clearly through the storm. His restored eye served as a symbol of healing, a reminder that clarity and strength often emerge only after enduring hardship. Set's presence, though disruptive, was increasingly recognized as an essential teacher. His storms revealed weaknesses, but also illuminated paths to strength. Those who embraced the lessons within disorder found themselves transformed, understanding that true balance comes not from avoiding chaos, but from learning how to move through it with wisdom and courage. Set's role was not to destroy for the sake of destruction, but to clear the way for renewal and growth. In modern reflections, the myth was often seen as a map for personal evolution. Osiris represented the part of the self that must occasionally surrender to transformation. Isis embodied the nurturing force that guides healing. Horus reflected the emergence of a renewed self, strong and clear in purpose. And Set symbolized the trials that make such growth possible. Together, they illustrated that life is not a straight path, but a series of cycles where loss leads to discovery, and endings open doors to new beginnings. As people face the complexities of modern existence with its uncertainties, rapid changes, and moments of disconnection, the quiet wisdom of this ancient story offered grounding. It reminded them to trust in the deeper rhythms beneath the surface, to recognize that while chaos may arise, it is always followed by the opportunity to restore balance, and that love, justice, and resilience are the enduring forces that guide the soul through every twist and turn. The myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set became a silent companion for those seeking meaning, a story that did not demand belief, but invited understanding. It offered the comfort that no matter how fragmented life might feel, there is always a path toward wholeness, and that through patience, courage, and devotion, every soul can navigate the cycles of existence with grace. And so, beneath the ever-changing landscape of human life, the ancient tale continued to flow. A quiet reminder that in the dance between light and shadow, it is not the absence of struggle that defines us, but the way we rise, heal, and find balance amidst it all. The story endured, whispering to each generation that beyond every fall, there is always the promise of rising again. As the world continued to evolve, moving through ages of reason, industry, and technology, the ancient tale of Osiris, Isis, and Set remained quietly resilient. It existed not in the headlines or the hurried pace of modern life, but in the spaces where people still searched for meaning beyond the surface. In those quiet moments of reflection, when the noise of the world faded, the story whispered its timeless truths. Isis's journey, once told in temple courts and along the banks of the Nile, found new life in the hearts of those who faced their own quests for restoration. Her devotion spoke to anyone who had known loss, and yet chosen to hope to rebuild what was broken, even when the task seemed impossible. Her wings, once carved in stone, now symbolized the unseen strength that carries people through grief, reminding them that love is not diminished by sorrow, but made more powerful through it. Osiris's calm presence beyond the veil remained a source of comfort for those contemplating the mysteries of life and death. In a world often driven by fear of endings, his story offered a different perspective. That death, whether literal or symbolic, is a necessary passage into a new state of being. Osiris reminded humanity that to live with integrity and balance is to prepare for transformation, trusting that beyond every threshold lies a continuation shaped by the values one upheld in life. Horus's resilience continued to inspire those standing against the forces of disorder in their own lives. His struggle against Set echoed in every effort to reclaim stability amidst chaos. His story was not about domination, but about restoring rightful harmony. Each time someone rose after being struck down by life's challenges, they embodied the spirit of Horus. His eye, shining brightly after being restored, reminded all that healing is not just possible, it is inevitable when guided by courage and wisdom. Set's role in the myth, long misunderstood, became clearer to those who reflected deeply. He was not simply a force of destruction, but a catalyst for change. His presence in life's disruptions taught that adversity, while painful, serves to awaken dormant strength. Without Set's chaos, there would be no need for Horus's resilience, no opportunity for growth. People began to see that within every storm lies the chance to rebuild stronger, wiser, and more attuned to what truly matters. The myth, though ancient, felt more relevant than ever in a world defined by rapid transformation. It offered a grounding reminder that change, loss, and challenge are not deviations from life, but essential parts of it. The story invited people to embrace the cycles of death and rebirth within their own experiences, to recognize that every ending carries the seed of a new beginning, and that through love, justice, and perseverance, balance can always be restored. Artists continue to echo these themes in their work. Writers wove the myth's symbolism into stories of personal growth and societal renewal. Musicians captured the rhythms of fall and rise, of chaos and harmony. The tale lived on, not because it was preserved in ancient texts, but because its truths were reflected in the ongoing journey of every human soul. And so, beneath the shifting landscapes of modern civilization, the quiet river of this wisdom continued to flow, unseen by many, but always present for those who paused to listen. The myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set remained a guide not to escape life's challenges, but to navigate them with grace, reminding all who heard it that within every shadow there is light waiting to return, and within every fragment the possibility of becoming whole once more. In the stillness that follows life's greatest upheavals, when the dust settles and the heart searches for meaning, the ancient story of Osiris, Isis, and Set offers its quiet wisdom. It speaks not in grand declarations, but in gentle reminders that the cycles of breaking and healing, of losing and finding, are as natural as the turning of the stars or the flowing of a river. Isis's unwavering devotion became a symbol of hope for those navigating personal storms. Her journey was not defined by despair, but by purpose. Each step she took to gather the scattered pieces of Osiris reminded people that even when life feels fragmented, there is strength in the act of seeking restoration. She taught that love is not passive, it is an active force, capable of defying even the boundaries of life and death. Her magic lived not only in ancient spells, but in every moment where compassion leads to healing. Osiris stood as a guardian of transitions. His story comforted those facing the unknown, reminding them that endings are part of a greater rhythm. He did not rule with fear, but with fairness, offering a vision of what lies beyond change, a place where balance is restored, and peace awaits those who live true to themselves and the world around them. In a society often anxious about loss, Osiris's presence reassured that transformation is not to be feared, but embraced as the continuation of existence in a different form. Horus's story resonated with anyone who has ever fought to reclaim order in the face of chaos. His battles with Set were more than divine conflicts, they were reflections of the inner struggles faced by every individual. The moments when doubt, fear, or turmoil threatened to unseat one's sense of purpose. Horus showed that victory comes not through force alone, but through resilience, clarity, and the courage to stand firm for what is just. His restored eye became a symbol for seeing beyond pain, for recognizing the path forward even after being wounded. Set's presence in the myth served as a reminder that chaos is a natural force, one that challenges, disrupts, and ultimately shapes growth. Without Set, there would be no reason for Horus to rise, no opportunity for the soul to discover its strength. People began to see that life's trials, though difficult, were not punishments but invitations to evolve. Set's storms cleared the way for renewal, forcing individuals to confront what needed to change and to emerge from the turmoil transformed. In the quiet reflections of modern life, where many searched for meaning amidst complexity, the myth offered timeless guidance. It reminded those who listened that life is not a straight line, but a series of cycles, each with its own lessons, challenges, and opportunities for renewal. The story encouraged acceptance of both light and shadow, teaching that balance is not found in avoiding hardship, but in moving through it with wisdom and grace. The legacy of Osiris, Isis, and Set continued to inspire those who sought depth beyond the surface. It lived in the way people approached love, resilience, justice, and transformation. It offered comfort during times of loss, strength during moments of trial, and hope when the future seemed uncertain. The myth was not just a relic of ancient belief, it was a mirror, reflecting the eternal patterns that shape every human journey. And so, as the world spun forward, the quiet voice of this ancient story endured, reminding all who heard it that within every fall lies the promise of rising. Within every storm, the clearing skies, and within every heart, the power to restore balance through love, courage, and the understanding that life, in all its forms, is a dance between endings and beginnings. As the pace of the modern world quickened, with its endless stream of information and constant pursuit of progress, the deeper rhythms of existence remained unchanged. Beneath the surface of daily routines and fleeting concerns, the ancient story of Osiris, Isis, and Set continued to resonate. It spoke to those who paused long enough to feel the steady pulse of life's eternal cycles, the quiet truths that endure when all else fades. Isis's legacy lived on in every act of quiet resilience. She became more than a goddess of ancient myth. She became a symbol for those who refused to let sorrow define them. Her search for Osiris reflected the human capacity to hold on to love even when faced with overwhelming loss. Each time, someone chose to rebuild after devastation, to care when it would be easier to turn away. They walked the path of Isis. Her wings stretched beyond the borders of Egypt, offering comfort to anyone who believed that what is broken can be made whole again. Osiris, seated upon his throne in the unseen realm, remained a beacon for those contemplating life's greater mysteries. His presence reminded people that beyond every transformation lies a place of balance and peace. In a world often driven by fear of endings, his story encouraged a different view that what we call endings are but thresholds into new forms of existence. Osiris embodied the quiet strength of acceptance, the wisdom that comes from understanding that the cycle of life and death is not something to resist, but something to honor. Horus's spirit lived on in those who stood up against the chaos of their own lives. His story was not confined to battles between gods, but played out in every heart that faced fear, uncertainty, or injustice, and chose to persevere. Each time someone reclaimed their sense of purpose after being thrown into disarray, they echoed Horus's journey. His restored eye remained a powerful symbol, a reminder that clarity, vision, and strength often come only after enduring life's trials and learning from them. Set's influence was recognized in every unexpected turn, every disruption that forced change. People began to see that his chaos, while uncomfortable, was necessary. Without it, there would be no growth, no renewal. Set was not the enemy to be destroyed, but the challenge to be understood. He represented the truth that life's storms, though fierce, clear the way for new beginnings. His presence in the myth taught that facing adversity is not a punishment, but an opportunity to evolve. Through art, philosophy, and quiet contemplation, the myth continued to find its place in the modern world. It offered guidance without demand, wisdom without dogma. For those who listened, it provided a map for navigating the complexities of existence, a reminder that life's hardships are part of a greater pattern, that love, justice, and resilience are the threads that hold everything together, even when the fabric seems torn. And so, the story of Osiris, Isis, and Set flowed onward like an ancient river beneath the surface of time. Its waters carried the memories of countless generations, offering refreshment to those who sought deeper meaning amidst the rush of life. It whispered that beyond every fall lies the strength to rise, that within every shadow light patiently waits, and that through devotion, courage, and understanding, balance can always be restored. In the quiet spaces between moments when the world slowed just enough for reflection, the ancient tale of Osiris, Isis, and Set revealed its enduring presence. It was not bound to the past, nor confined to forgotten temples. Instead, it lived in the patterns of life itself, in the way people faced challenges, embraced change, and held on to hope through the darkest nights. Isis remained a guiding light for those who found themselves amidst loss. Her story offered more than comfort, it offered a path. She showed that love is not diminished by separation, but strengthened through devotion and action. Every person who chose to care, to heal, and to restore despite the weight of sorrow carried a spark of Isis's magic within them. Her journey was a reminder that the act of seeking wholeness is itself an expression of love's deepest power. Osiris continued to embody the wisdom of transformation. His calm reign over the realm beyond life reassured those who feared the unknown. He taught that the essence of who we are does not vanish with change, but evolves. His presence encouraged people to live with integrity, knowing that what they cultivate within truth, balance, compassion will guide them through every passage, whether seen or unseen. Osiris stood as a symbol that peace is found not in avoiding endings, but in embracing them as part of a larger cycle. Horus's enduring strength inspired those who faced their own battles against the forces of chaos. Whether confronting personal struggles, societal upheaval, or inner doubts, his story reminded people that resilience is born from persistence and clarity of purpose. Horus did not triumph through brute force alone, but through a commitment to restore harmony. Each time someone found the courage to stand tall after being knocked down, they echoed his legacy. His eye, whole once more, symbolized the journey toward insight and balance after hardship. Set's presence continued to be felt wherever life demanded adaptation. In every unexpected challenge, Every disruption that forced people to rethink, rebuild, or grow, the spirit of Set stirred. He was the embodiment of necessary change, the force that unsettled complacency and opened the door to transformation. Those who understood his role no longer saw chaos as something to fear, but as a force to navigate, a teacher that, while harsh, revealed the paths toward strength and renewal. As the world around them shifted with each passing generation, those who reflected on this myth found comfort in its constancy. It offered a perspective that transcended the fleeting concerns of the moment, reminding them that life's true journey is not about avoiding struggle, but about moving through it with grace, wisdom, and the understanding that every trial carries the seed of rebirth. The story of Osiris, Isis, and Set became more than a tale of gods. It became a quiet companion to anyone seeking meaning in the face of life's uncertainties. It whispered that love has the power to heal even the deepest wounds, that justice, though sometimes delayed, will find its place, and that resilience is the bridge between chaos and order. The myth was a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure, to restore, and to rise again and again. And so, beneath the shifting sands of time and the ever-changing face of the world, the ancient river of this story flowed on, carrying with it the eternal promise that after every ending, a new beginning waits, that within every heart lies the strength to heal, and that through devotion, courage, and balance, the soul can navigate the endless dance of life with quiet confidence and hope. As the currents of time carried humanity further into an age of complexity and constant movement, the quiet wisdom of the ancient myth remained. It was easy to overlook in a world filled with noise and distraction, yet for those who paused, who listened beyond the surface, the story of Osiris, Isis, and Set offered something enduring. A reminder that beneath life's chaos lies a rhythm as old as existence itself. Isis's devotion continued to inspire those who faced the long road of healing. Her journey was not swift, nor was it without pain, but it showed that persistence, fueled by love, could overcome even the most impossible odds. Each time someone chose to believe in restoration, to gather the scattered pieces of their life, and patiently mend what had been broken, they followed in the footsteps of Isis. She became a symbol of hope, not born from ease, but from the quiet strength to continue when the path seemed uncertain. Osiris's calm authority spoke to those standing at the thresholds of change. His story reminded them that transformation is a sacred process, that to let go of what was is not a loss, but an entry into something deeper. His presence in the myth offered a vision of peace that comes from accepting the cycles of life and death, not as opposites, but as partners in the eternal dance of being. Osiris taught that living with balance prepares the soul to cross into whatever lies beyond, carrying with it the light of truth. Horus's resilience remained a guiding force for those facing personal battles. His triumph was not the absence of struggle, but the result of enduring it, of standing firm in the face of chaos and reclaiming what was rightfully his. Each person who rose after being struck down by life's unpredictable storms echoed Horus's journey. His restored eye served as a beacon, a reminder that clarity and strength often emerge only after one has faced the depths of confusion and pain. Set, the eternal disruptor, continued to reveal his role in the ongoing cycle of growth. His storms, though fierce, were never without purpose. They cleared away what no longer served, forcing individuals and societies to confront weaknesses and adapt. Those who understood Set's place in the myth no longer viewed adversity as mere misfortune, but as a catalyst for evolution. He was the force that ensured life remained dynamic, pushing against stagnation and calling forth hidden reserves of strength. In a world that often sought quick solutions and easy answers, the myth offered a different kind of wisdom. It spoke of patience, of enduring love, of justice that unfolds in its own time. It reminded those who listened that life's greatest transformations are rarely immediate, but are shaped through cycles of loss, reflection, and renewal. The story encouraged acceptance of both order and chaos, teaching that balance is not the absence of challenge, but the ability to navigate it with grace. The legacy of Osiris, Isis, and Set lived on in the quiet moments, in the decisions to persevere, to heal, to seek harmony amidst disorder. It became a silent guide for those who understood that true strength is not found in avoiding hardship, but in moving through it with wisdom and resilience. The myth was a testament to the enduring power of love, the inevitability of change, and the promise that no matter how many times life is fractured, it can always be made whole again. And so, beneath the ever-changing face of the world, the ancient river of this story continued to flow, offering its timeless message to all who chose to listen, reminding them that within every storm lies the seed of calm. Within every ending, a quiet beginning waits. And through devotion, courage, and understanding, the soul can find its way through the endless cycles of life, with peace in its heart. In the soft spaces where reflection meets understanding, the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set continued to unfold. It was no longer just a story told by priests or carved into temple walls, but a living thread woven through the human experience. Wherever people faced change, loss, and renewal, the echoes of this ancient tale could be felt, offering guidance, comfort, and a deeper sense of connection to the rhythms that govern all life. Isis's enduring image, wings outstretched in protection, and love served as a symbol for those who carried the weight of sorrow yet refused to be broken by it. Her devotion was a quiet force, reminding people that healing does not erase the pain of loss, but transforms it into something sacred. Each act of kindness, each moment of choosing hope over despair, carried within it the spirit of Isis's journey. She showed that love's greatest power lies not in preventing hardship, but in restoring what hardship tries to take away. Osiris, as the embodiment of peaceful transition, offered solace to those standing at life's many thresholds. His story encouraged a view of change not as something to fear, but as a natural part of existence's ebb and flow. He reminded humanity that endings are not failures, but necessary steps toward new forms of being. His calm reign in the realm beyond life reflected the wisdom that true peace comes from embracing the cycles, trusting that balance will always be restored in time. Horus's legacy inspired resilience in the face of adversity. His battles against Set mirrored the internal struggles faced by every person striving to maintain order amidst chaos. Each time someone stood up for justice, reclaimed their sense of purpose, or found clarity after confusion, they lived out the spirit of Horus. His restored eye remained a guiding light, a symbol that even after the deepest wounds, vision and strength could return, clearer and more focused than before. Set's role in the myth continued to be a reminder that disruption is not the enemy, but a force that shapes growth. His presence in life's challenges taught that adversity is a catalyst, a necessary part of evolution. Those who understood this no longer resisted change, but learned to move with it, to find stability within, even when the world around them shifted. Set's storms, though unsettling, cleared the way for renewal, forcing the soul to shed what no longer served its journey. As the world grew more complex, with its shifting landscapes and rapid transformations, the myth remained a grounding force. It spoke to those who sought meaning amidst uncertainty, offering the quiet assurance that life's patterns are timeless, that love, resilience, and balance are constants, even when everything else seems to change. The story invited reflection not to escape the present, but to see it through the lens of deeper understanding. And so, the legacy of Osiris, Isis, and Set lived on, not in grand monuments, but in the hearts of those who carried forward the wisdom of their tale. It whispered that within every heart lies the power to endure, to heal, to rise above chaos and find harmony once more. The myth was a testament to the enduring cycles of life, a reminder that through devotion, courage, and acceptance of life's rhythms, the soul can navigate every challenge with grace, knowing that after every fall, the promise of renewal awaits. As the sands of time continue to drift, covering old paths and revealing new ones, the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set remained like a steady pulse beneath the ever-changing surface of the world. It endured not because it was preserved in ancient texts alone, but because its essence spoke to something unchanging within the human spirit. The quiet knowledge that life moves in cycles, that loss and renewal are bound together, and that love, resilience, and balance are the forces that guide us through it all. Isis's journey through grief and devotion echoed in the hearts of those who faced their own trials. She showed that healing is not the absence of pain, but the transformation of it, a process where love becomes the bridge between what was lost and what can be restored. Every time someone chose to act with compassion, to nurture life amid sorrow, they carried forward the legacy of Isis. Her wings, unseen but always present, sheltered those who believed in the quiet power of hope and perseverance. Osiris's calm reign beyond the veil reminded humanity that transitions, no matter how final they may seem, are simply part of a greater journey. His story offered comfort to those standing at life's many thresholds, whether facing personal change, the passage of time, or the mysteries of death itself. Osiris embodied the wisdom that comes from accepting the flow of existence, trusting that beyond every ending, there is a place where balance is restored and peace prevails. Horus's resilience continued to inspire those navigating the chaos of modern life. His struggle against Set was reflected in every effort to reclaim order amidst disruption. Each time a person found the strength to rise after being cast down by circumstance, they lived out the spirit of Horus. His restored eye became a symbol for those seeking clarity after confusion, a reminder that vision, once lost, could be found again sharper, wiser, and more attuned to what truly matters. Set's role as the harbinger of change remained essential. His storms reminded people that growth often comes through challenge. That disruption, while uncomfortable, clears the way for renewal. Those who embraced this understanding no longer feared chaos, but saw it as a necessary force, one that demanded adaptability, courage, and the willingness to let go of what no longer served. Set was not the enemy of life, but the catalyst that ensured it remained vibrant and dynamic. Through quiet reflection, art, and storytelling, the myth continued to weave its way into the fabric of human experience. It guided those who sought meaning beneath the surface of daily life, offering a timeless perspective that embraced both light and shadow. It reminded people that balance is not a state to be achieved once and held forever, but a dance, a continual process of adjusting, learning, and growing through the cycles of existence. And so, as generations passed and the world transformed, the legacy of Osiris, Isis, and Set remained steady. It offered a compass for those navigating the complexities of life, whispering that within every heart lies the strength to endure, to heal, and to find harmony amidst the ever-turning wheel of change. The myth was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that through love, wisdom, and courage, we are always capable of rising, no matter how many times we fall. In the quiet spaces between one breath and the next, where reflection softens the edges of the present moment, the ancient story of Osiris, Isis, and Set continues to offer its gentle wisdom. It speaks to those who seek not just answers, but understanding, those who recognize that life's greatest truths are often found not in certainty, but in the acceptance of life's eternal rhythms. Isis's devotion shines as a beacon for anyone who has ever faced the weight of sorrow and chosen to hope despite it. Her journey teaches that love is an active force, one that does not surrender in the face of loss, but moves forward with quiet determination to restore what has been broken. Each act of kindness, each choice to nurture life amidst hardship, echoes her legacy, reminding all who hear her story that healing is not immediate, but always possible through patience, care, and unwavering faith. Osiris, with his serene presence beyond the veil, offers comfort to those standing at the crossroads of change. His tale reminds humanity that endings are not to be feared, but honored as part of the greater cycle. He represents the wisdom of letting go, of trusting that beyond every transformation lies a space where balance is reestablished. His story encourages living with integrity and grace, knowing that the values we carry will guide us through every passage seen and unseen. Horus's enduring strength serves as a guide for those confronting the inevitable chaos that life presents. His battles with Set are mirrored in every personal struggle to reclaim stability, purpose, and clarity. Each time someone rises after being cast into confusion or adversity, they embody the spirit of Horus. His restored eye continues to symbolize the journey toward wholeness after fragmentation, a reminder that true vision often comes only after we have faced and overcome life's greatest challenges. Set's presence, once viewed solely as destructive, is now understood as the force that propels growth. His disruptions, though unsettling, are necessary to awaken strength and adaptability. Those who recognize his role no longer resist the storms, but learn to move through them, finding resilience in the process. Set teaches that while chaos is inevitable, it is also a source of transformation, pushing us to evolve beyond comfort into deeper understanding and inner power. As the world moves forward, shaped by innovation and constant change, the myth remains a quiet anchor. It offers a perspective that transcends time, reminding those who listen that life is not a linear path, but a series of cycles, of falling and rising, of losing and finding, of breaking and healing. The story of Osiris, Isis, and Set invites reflection on how to navigate these cycles with grace, courage, and the wisdom to see both light and shadow as essential parts of the journey. Through the arts, through whispered stories, and through personal reflection, the myth continues to live, not as a relic of the past, but as a living guide. It speaks to the enduring human experience, the challenges we face, the love we hold, and the resilience that carries us forward. It reminds us that balance is not found in the absence of struggle, but in how we choose to meet it, with devotion, with strength, and with the understanding that after every storm, calm returns, and with every ending comes the quiet promise of a new beginning. As the endless tide of time washed over civilizations, the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set remained untouched by decay. While monuments crumbled and languages faded, the essence of their story lived on, not bound to stone or script, but carried quietly in the hearts of those who understood its deeper meaning. It was a story that belonged to no single era, because it spoke to the eternal truths that every soul encounters in the journey through life. Isis, the embodiment of love's resilience, continued to inspire those who found themselves piecing together what life had scattered. Her devotion was not a grand gesture, but a series of quiet acts, the patient gathering of fragments, the gentle weaving of broken threads into something whole once more. Each person who chose hope over despair, who tended to the wounds of loss with care and determination, carried forward the legacy of Isis. She reminded humanity that healing is a sacred process, and that love's true power is revealed in the moments when we refuse to give up on what matters most. Osiris, ever serene in his role beyond the veil, offered a vision of peace that transcended fear. His story comforted those standing before life's inevitable transformations, reminding them that death, whether of a person, a dream, or a chapter of life, is not the end, but a return to balance, a passage into a new form of being. Osiris invited reflection on how to live with grace, knowing that what we cultivate within will guide us through every transition. His presence was a quiet assurance that after every fall into darkness, there is a place where light and harmony prevail. Horus's enduring strength continued to guide those facing the turbulence of change. His battle with Set was reflected in every personal struggle to reclaim purpose amidst chaos. Each time someone rose after being cast down by life's unpredictable storms, they echoed Horus's journey. His restored eye shone as a symbol that clarity and vision are not lost forever. They return, often brighter and more focused, after we endure and learn from life's challenges. Horus taught that resilience is not the absence of hardship, but the courage to stand firm in its midst. Set's role, long misunderstood, revealed itself more clearly to those who embraced the fullness of the myth. He was the necessary force of disruption, the wind that shakes the branches so that new growth may emerge. His chaos was not senseless destruction, but a call to adapt, to evolve, to find strength in the face of uncertainty. Those who faced Set's storms with understanding no longer feared them, but welcomed the transformation they brought, recognizing that without challenge, the soul would remain dormant. In a world that often sought control and predictability, the myth offered a reminder that true balance is dynamic. It is not found in resisting change, but in learning to move with it, to find harmony within, even as the external world shifts. The story of Osiris, Isis, and Set became a quiet guide for those seeking meaning amidst the complexities of modern life. It whispered that love, resilience, and acceptance of life cycles are the keys to navigating existence with grace. And so, beneath the surface of daily life, the ancient river of this story continued to flow, offering its timeless wisdom to those who paused long enough to listen. It reminded them that after every dismemberment, there is the possibility of restoration. After every storm, the return of calm. And through devotion, courage, and understanding, the soul can always find its way back to balance, no matter how many times it is tested by the winds of change. In the quiet corners of thought, where the noise of the world fades and deeper truths emerge, the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set continued to offer its eternal guidance. It spoke not only of gods and ancient times, but of the human experience of love that endures beyond loss, of strength discovered through struggle, and of the delicate balance between order and chaos that defines every life. Isis's journey remained a beacon for those navigating the aftermath of sorrow. Her devotion was a testament to the quiet power of persistence, the understanding that healing does not come all at once, but through patient, loving effort. Each time someone chose to nurture what remained, to believe in the possibility of renewal even when faced with absence, they carried forward the essence of Isis. Her story was a reminder that love is not diminished by hardship, but deepened through the act of restoring what has been broken. Osiris stood as a symbol of calm acceptance in the face of life's inevitable transformations. His reign in the unseen realm offered comfort to those who feared the unknown. His story invited reflection on how to live in harmony with the cycles of change, to recognize that every ending carries within it the seed of a new beginning. Osiris embodied the wisdom that peace is not found in clinging to what was, but in trusting the flow of existence and the balance that awaits beyond every threshold. Horus's resilience continued to inspire those who faced their own battles against disorder. His story was not about eliminating chaos, but about restoring rightful harmony when it was lost. Each time someone stood up after being cast into confusion, reclaimed their sense of purpose, or found clarity amidst turmoil, they echoed Horus's journey. His eye, whole once more, symbolized the truth that even after life's deepest wounds, vision and strength can return refined by experience and illuminated by perseverance. Set, the eternal force of disruption, remained a necessary presence in the unfolding of life. His storms were reminders that growth often comes through challenge, that without moments of upheaval, the soul would never be called to discover its true strength. Those who understood Set's role no longer feared the unexpected, but embraced it as part of the dance between stability and change, recognizing that chaos, when met with wisdom, becomes a force of transformation rather than destruction. As people move through the complexities of modern life, The myth offered a timeless perspective. It reminded them that life is not a path to be controlled, but a journey to be navigated with grace. That love, resilience, and acceptance of life's rhythms are the keys to finding balance amidst uncertainty. The story of Osiris, Isis, and Set became more than a tale of ancient gods. It became a mirror reflecting the eternal patterns that shape every human experience. And so, beneath the shifting landscapes of time and progress, the ancient wisdom flowed on, quietly guiding those who sought meaning beyond the surface. It whispered that within every heart lies the power to endure, to heal, and to find harmony amidst life's endless cycles of change, reminding all who listened that after every fall comes the promise of rising, and through devotion, courage, and understanding, balance can always be restored. As the journey of humanity stretched onward, through eras of discovery, uncertainty, and renewal, the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set remained quietly present. It lingered not as a distant memory of a forgotten civilization, but as a living current beneath the surface of human experience. The story, shaped by the sands of ancient Egypt, had become something far greater, a reflection of the cycles that govern every life, every heart, and every transformation. Isis's devotion continued to shine as a symbol for those who found themselves amidst the slow process of healing. Her journey was not marked by grand victories, but by quiet persistence, the steady gathering of what had been lost. Each person who chose to believe in restoration, who nurtured hope when surrounded by fragments of what once was, embodied the essence of Isis. Her story whispered that love's greatest power is revealed not in moments of ease, but in the determination to bring light back into places touched by darkness. Osiris's calm presence beyond the veil offered comfort to those facing life's inevitable transitions. His tale reminded humanity that endings are not failures, but passages, thresholds into new forms of being. He taught that peace comes from accepting the rhythm of existence, the understanding that life flows in cycles of creation, dissolution, and renewal. Osiris stood as a guide for those seeking balance amidst change, offering the quiet assurance that beyond every closing door, another opens into harmony. Horus's strength remained a beacon for those navigating the turbulence of their own challenges. His battle against Set was not just a tale of gods, but a reflection of the human spirit's resilience. Each time someone reclaimed order after chaos, found clarity after confusion, or stood firm in the face of adversity, they walked the path of Horus. His restored eye symbolized the truth that even after being wounded by life, vision and purpose could be recovered, often stronger and more insightful than before. Set's role as the bringer of disruption continued to be understood as essential to growth. His storms, though unsettling, were part of the natural order forces that cleared away stagnation and called forth hidden strength. Those who embraced the challenges he represented learned that chaos is not the enemy, but a teacher, one that demands adaptability, courage, and the wisdom to find balance within, even when the world shifts unpredictably around them. In a world that often sought to avoid discomfort and control outcomes, the myth offered a deeper understanding. It reminded those who listened that life's beauty lies in its rhythms, in the interplay between stability and change, between light and shadow. The story encouraged acceptance of life's cycles, teaching that true harmony is not found in resisting change, but in moving gracefully through it, guided by love, resilience, and trust in the process of renewal. And so, the tale of Osiris, Isis, and Set continued to flow through the hearts of those who sought meaning beyond the fleeting concerns of the moment. It offered a timeless perspective, a quiet reminder that within every soul lies the power to endure, to heal, and to rise again, no matter how many times life's storms seek to scatter what we hold dear. The myth was a testament to the enduring truth that, through devotion, courage, and understanding, balance can always be restored. In the stillness where reflection deepens and the noise of the world fades away, the ancient story of Osiris, Isis, and Set reveals its most profound wisdom. It is here, in these quiet moments, that the timeless nature of their tale becomes clear. For this myth is not merely about gods of a distant past, it is about the cycles that shape every life, the challenges that forge resilience, and the love that binds all things together through the ebb and flow of existence. Isis stands as a symbol of unwavering devotion. Her journey through grief and restoration offers guidance to anyone who has faced loss and chosen not to surrender to despair. She teaches that healing is a process of patience and care, that love is an active force, capable of mending what has been broken by time, fate, or circumstance. Each act of compassion, each quiet decision to nurture hope in the face of sorrow, carries forward the legacy of Isis's enduring strength. Osiris, the calm ruler of the unseen realm, invites a rethinking of how we view endings. His story assures that transformation is not something to fear, but something to embrace. He embodies the wisdom that life does not move in straight lines, but in circles, where every conclusion leads to a new beginning. Osiris offers peace to those standing at the edge of change, reminding them that balance awaits beyond every transition, and that the essence of who we are continues to flow within the greater rhythm of existence. Horus's resilience serves as a beacon for those in the midst of life's storms. His battles are not relics of myth, but reflections of the inner struggles faced by anyone seeking to reclaim clarity and purpose amidst chaos. Each time someone rises after being cast down, finds strength after hardship, or restores order in their life, they echo Horus's journey. His restored eye is a reminder that vision lost can be regained, and that true sight often comes after we have endured and grown from life's most difficult trials. Set, the eternal force of disruption, reminds us that chaos is not an adversary to be eliminated, but a force to be understood. His presence in the myth teaches that adversity is part of life's design, a catalyst for growth, transformation, and renewal. Those who recognize this truth no longer resist life's unexpected turns, but learn to navigate them with courage and adaptability, knowing that within every storm lies the potential for rebirth. As humanity continues to move through an ever-changing world, the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set remains a quiet guide. It offers perspective amidst uncertainty, comfort during times of loss, and strength when faced with challenges. The story invites reflection on how to live in harmony with life's cycles, embracing both light and shadow, order and chaos, knowing that balance is found not in avoiding struggle, but in moving through it with grace and wisdom. And so, Beneath the layers of modern life, the ancient wisdom flows on, reminding all who listen that within every heart lies the power to endure, to heal, and to rise anew. The tale of Osiris, Isis, and Set is not just a story of gods, it is a mirror reflecting the eternal journey of the soul, a testament to love's resilience, the necessity of transformation, and the quiet promise that after every fall, balance and light will return. As the story of Osiris, Isis, and Set approached its quiet conclusion, its echoes could still be felt across the endless stretches of time. It was never just a tale confined to ancient temples or whispered along the banks of the Nile. It became something far greater, a reflection of the human journey itself, a guide through the inevitable cycles of loss and renewal, chaos and order, darkness and light. Isis's unwavering devotion continued to resonate in the hearts of those who faced the slow, patient work of healing. Her legacy was carried forward in every act of love that chose persistence over despair. She showed that true strength lies not in avoiding sorrow, but in meeting it with compassion and resolve. Each person who tended to what was broken, who nurtured life amidst the ruins of loss, lived out the spirit of Isis, reminding the world that love endures beyond endings, quietly weaving wholeness from fragments. Osiris remained the symbol of peaceful transformation. His calm presence in the realm beyond life offered reassurance that change is not to be feared, but embraced as part of a greater rhythm. He embodied the understanding that every ending carries within it the seed of something new, that balance, once lost, can always be restored. Osiris taught that when we live in harmony with truth and integrity, we need not fear the unknown, for beyond every threshold, there is a place where light and order prevail. Horus's resilience continued to guide those who found themselves facing life's inevitable storms. His story was not about the absence of struggle, but about the courage to stand firm amidst it. Each time someone reclaimed their sense of purpose after being cast into confusion, each time they found clarity after hardship, they followed in the footsteps of Horus. His restored eye remained a beacon, a symbol that vision, once clouded by chaos, could return brighter and wiser than before. Set's role as the necessary force of disruption was finally understood by those who reflected deeply on the myth. His presence was not a curse, but a catalyst, a reminder that without challenge, growth would be impossible. Set's storms, while unsettling, cleared the way for renewal. Those who embraced this truth learned to move with life's changes, to find strength in adaptability, and to see every trial as an opportunity to evolve beyond what they once thought possible. And so, as the world continued to turn and the cycles of existence unfolded, the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set remained, not as a relic of the past, but as a living thread woven through every experience of love, loss, challenge, and renewal. It offered quiet guidance to those who sought meaning beyond the fleeting concerns of daily life, reminding them that within every heart lies the power to endure, to heal, and to find balance amidst the endless dance of creation and transformation. The story did not end because it was never meant to. It flowed onward like the eternal Nile, carrying with it the wisdom that after every fall comes the promise of rising, that through devotion, courage, and understanding, harmony can always be restored, and that love, patient, resilient, and unwavering, is the force that binds all things together through the ever-turning wheel of life. In the final reflections of this timeless tale, the myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set reveals itself not as a story with a clear beginning or end, but as a cycle, an eternal rhythm echoing through every life, every heart, and every transformation. It is a quiet companion on the journey through existence, offering wisdom to those who pause long enough to hear its gentle whispers beneath the noise of the world. Isis remains the embodiment of love's enduring strength. Her devotion teaches that healing is not found in the absence of pain, but in the courage to face it with compassion and patience. Each time someone chooses to nurture hope amidst loss, to believe in restoration when all seems broken, they carry forward her legacy. She reminds us that love is not diminished by sorrow, it is deepened, refined, and made eternal through the act of holding on when letting go would be easier. Osiris stands as a symbol of peaceful acceptance. His calm reign beyond the veil invites us to see endings not as final, but as transitions. He teaches that life flows in cycles, that every closing chapter leads to a new beginning, shaped by the balance we cultivate within ourselves. Osiris offers the quiet assurance that when we live with integrity and harmony, we need not fear change, for beyond every transformation lies a return to peace and order. Horus continues to inspire resilience. His journey reflects the strength found in rising after every fall, in reclaiming clarity after confusion, and in restoring balance amidst chaos. His restored eye shines as a symbol of healing, a reminder that vision and purpose, once lost, can be regained. Horus teaches that true victory is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to stand firm in its midst, guided by justice, wisdom, and the unwavering will to restore what has been disrupted. Set, once seen only as the force of destruction, is now understood as the necessary catalyst for growth. His presence in the myth reveals that chaos is not an enemy, but a force that propels transformation. Through his storms, we are called to adapt, to discover hidden strengths, and to evolve beyond the limits of comfort. Set reminds us that without challenge, there can be no renewal. That it is through facing adversity that we come to know the depth of our own resilience. As this story flows to its quiet conclusion, it leaves behind not an ending, but a reminder of life's eternal dance. The myth of Osiris, Isis, and Set lives on in every moment of love that chooses to heal, in every act of courage that restores balance, in every acceptance of change as part of a greater rhythm. It offers a timeless truth that within every heart lies the power to endure, to transform, and to rise again and again. And so, the river of this ancient wisdom continues to flow beneath the sands of time, beneath the surface of modern life, always present for those who seek it. It whispers that after every fall, light will return, that through devotion, strength, and understanding, harmony can always be found, and that love, quiet, patient, and eternal, is the force that carries us through the endless cycles of life, death, and rebirth, guiding us gently toward balance, no matter how many times the wheel turns.